Good morning, everyone. We're still waiting for some people to join us in the room. I heard we've already started the live stream, so everyone at home, a very warm welcome to all of you. People are finishing their coffee over here. Let's see for them to join us also in this beautiful room in Brussels. And I would like to welcome you to the EU-Africa conference about developing excellent research and talent together. Also, a very warm welcome again to our participants at home. Over 300 of you have registered, and most of them are from Africa, so a very special welcome to you. And we're delighted that we have so many people also joining us online, since it's an EU-Africa conference that we can also have a lot of people from Africa joining us in this conference. My name is Jolien Strauss, and I'll be your chair for today. And what we have is a hybrid event, and to make sure that everyone can interact, we can of course interact in this room, but we would like to also interact with all those people joining us online. And for this, the people online can use a Slido chat box next to the live stream that they're joining. And if that doesn't work for you, you can go to slido.com and go to the hashtag EUAfrica. All people in the room can, of course, just raise their hands and use their voice to give input. So I would like to invite you to do this once you're asked to ask questions or give some input for today. And let's give it a try if it works with the online and the live audience. So the first question I have for you is, in the room for raising the hands and online, you're going to form a word cloud. And the question is, where are you joining us from? And then for the room, you're of course joining us from Brussels, but are you also normally based in Brussels? Half of the room? Yeah. And who of you are part of one of the EuroTech universities? Almost everyone, okay. Who of you lives in Africa? 3 people, 4 people. Nice, thank you. And is there anyone I've missed? Where do you normally live?
In Denmark.
In Denmark, yeah. Nice, what a wonderful country. Let's see about the word cloud online, if it's worked in the Slido. Can we have it on the projector and on the screen? This is the exciting moment. Not yet. Let's see. So we don't know yet where all people joining us online are normally based or where they're joining us from. There is a word cloud coming up. A lot of people from Germany, or Germany's biggest. Ghana, Ethiopia, Netherlands, Belgium, Brussels, Cameroon, Stellenbosch, South Africa. Europe and Africa, I mostly see. Slovakia. Also people from Brussels who are joining us at home. Germany is very big here. Is it also that big in the room? 3 people? Well, no. So there's a slight difference between the room and between the people joining us online. It's great to see where you all come from. Thank you very much. To officially open today's conference, I would like to invite the head of the EuroTech Brussels office on stage. Please give her a warm welcome, Tatiana Panteli.
Hello. Yes, can you hear me well? People online, hope hear me as well. So welcome everybody, welcome here in the room as well. Most of you are colleagues or friends, so it's a warm welcome to you here, and welcome to all the people online. It's great that you are joining us, even not traveling to Brussels, but that's fantastic, because actually one of the topics of our event is sustainability and a green transition. So we are happy that you can still join us, but don't need to have all this carbon footprint. So welcome. This conference is a result of the cooperation between 6 EuroTech universities of science and technology, and they are DTU, EPFL, Institut Polytechnique de Paris, the Technion, TUI, and TUM. all our universities have identified that cooperation and actually collaboration with our African counterparts is a major priority for all of us. And while we work in different regions in Africa, the priorities are the same. So education is the number one, because Africa hosts the biggest number of young talents. And of course, high quality education is super important for both continents. So that's why we decided to start an EU-Africa working group, and it has been launched last year with all of our colleagues from all 6 universities, and also together with Fadila Bouganemi, deputy head from the European Commission, who is responsible for Asia, Africa, MENA, and external relations from DG Research and Innovation. And since then, we are building this relationship also with the European Commission colleagues, and I'm glad that some of the colleagues are here today, and we can all discuss how we can enhance this collaboration now and in the future, of course. But EuroTech Universities Alliance is not alone concerning cooperation with Africa. There were a lot of policy topics and initiatives have been launched by the European Commission. Just to mention Joint Vision for 2030 to renew EU-Africa partnerships. Also, EU-Africa Innovation Agenda is very important. And the Global Gateway with the main priorities for public health, green transition, innovation, technology, and the capacities of science. As you can see, education is not the only priority for our collaboration. It's also science, of course, it's also research, and there are already great examples of this collaboration. For example, Institut Polytechnique de Paris created a data science institute in Africa, and EPFL launched Excellence in Africa Research Center. So we've done something. We are on the way to build even stronger and bigger collaboration. But we know there are many obstacles, and depending, of course, on the country in Africa, there are different obstacles as well. And we would like, together with you, to try and reduce and hopefully one day to eliminate those obstacles. That's why we invite all of you, together with our speakers and ourselves today, to debate about how we can work together, what we should do to reduce those obstacles and collaborate even further between both continents, because we have the same issues actually, and we have the same aspirations, the same vision. So it's very natural to work together for the better planet for all of us. So thank you very much. I'm here, my colleagues are here, and we'll be happy to continue this dialogue with you today and in the future. And I would like also, and Yolene, of course, help me to introduce Matteo Gatti, who is the lead of the EU-Africa Working Group. And Matteo, of course, will tell more and will set the scene for today's event. Thank you very much. Thank you.
So as Tatiana already mentioned, we have these collaborations, and Matteo is an expert in them, so please give him a warm welcome. Matteo Gatti.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone here in Brussels. Good morning, everyone online, and welcome, everybody. So, following this famous saying, if I had to summarize in one sentence why we are all here today, I would say that we aim to go far. Therefore, we aim we wish to go together. In the next 5 minutes or so, I will elaborate a bit further on our vision, motivations, and goals. I guess everyone knows what a jam session is. Musicians get together, agree on a common genre, and improvise music together. In essence, research is very similar. We work together on a common problem and try to find a new solution. Both activities are based on creation, collaboration, and exchange. Now, if you think about it, exchange of ideas is actually quite different from exchange of material things. If you have an apple, and I have an apple, and we exchange apples, then you and I will still each have one apple. But if you have an idea, and I have an idea, and we exchange ideas, then each of us will have two ideas. However, if we exchange the same idea, we don't gain anything. For this principle to work, exchange needs diversity. Here, I would like to list at least 3 key motivations for research cooperation between Europe and Africa. We have mutual needs. We have just seen it. We look for diversity. Diversity of research subjects, diversity of young talents. We have common challenges as well. Challenges humankind is facing are global and need a shared response. Solutions are either collective or are not. Finally, even though we may speak Swahili, Italian, or Arabic, we can work together because we share the same universal language of science. From a European perspective, it is also important to underline that all this is not about charity. It is instead about seizing opportunities that the collaboration with African colleagues offer to us. Already ancient Greeks and Romans used to say that out of Africa there is always something new. If we don't seize the opportunities, someone else in other continents will do it instead of us. And we should absolutely avoid any arrogance telling our African friends what they have to do. We should actually listen them more. For example, Professor Chetty, an eminent physicist from South Africa, invites us to aim for the sky while being attentive to our problems on the ground. In other words, he points to the crucial need of basic research in Africa. We will come back to this point later, I guess. Now, if we work all alone, even if we do excellent science, it's like growing a nice flower, but a flower in the desert. One of the African giants, Professor Wangari Maathai, during her own life has shown us how we should instead plant trees. To fight the desert, what we need is indeed a whole forest, not a single flower. In other words, what we need is a whole research ecosystem. We should aim to co-construct networks or fertile connections between research groups and institutions across different countries and continents. To conclude, it's very tempting to bring together in the same slide 2 exceptional women. In black and white, Marie Curie, the first European woman to be awarded the Nobel Prize. In color, again, Wangari Maathai, the first African woman to be awarded the Nobel Prize, 100 years later. In the first discussion panel, we will talk in detail about the existing very successful program named after Marie Curie, which supports excellent research in Europe. If we devise new actions dedicated to Europe-Africa collaboration on excellent science, we may name them after Wangari Maathai. And my final word is just to say many thanks to Maria Montoiro and the whole EuroTech team here in Brussels for putting together this very timely discussion. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you very much, and welcome everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Matteo. And as you mentioned, already the first panel. Before we move to the first panel, what we will listen to is our keynote speaker. Our keynote speaker will join us online today, so that's going to pop up soon. And he will tell us about EU-Africa collaboration initiatives in the field of research and innovation. Please welcome the regional representative of Euraxis Africa, Ahmed Malel.
Thanks a lot. Very pleased today to be part of this great event, and thanks a lot for EuroTech team in Brussels. So today I'll try to present some mechanisms related to cooperation between EU and Africa, and I will try to present all services also given by EuroAccess Africa. So next, please, I'll try to present first of all myself. So the title is EU-Africa Collaboration Initiatives in the Field of Research and Innovation. Next. So, present myself. I am Dr. Ahmed Malel. I am Associate Professor at University of South in Tunisia, but since 2022, I am the regional representative for EuroAccess Africa. Actually, we are two. I'm based in Tunisia. My colleague Dr. Yedelfana, he is based in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia. And we are both working now in EuroAccess Africa Hub. And I was former the head of project management office of my university and the national contact point for Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe. Next. So before moving to presenting all mechanisms related to EU-Africa cooperation, I want to highlight this scientific production over 10 years. And as we see here, we have, if you see we have South Africa, we have Egypt, we have Nigeria, we have Tunisia, we have Morocco, and you see some countries. Actually, they have a lot of publications, scientific publications. Next, and when we try to see the same production by number of researchers by country, and you will see the same. And this is give us idea about the potential of African researchers actually. And we have the top 10 countries in Africa, and we will try after to see the participation of those countries in mechanisms related to opportunities for funds from European Commission. So next. Next, please. Now I will try to present Horizon Europe. As you see, Horizon Europe is the big program for research and innovation from European Commission from 21 to 27. Next, and we will see the budget of this Horizon Europe program. So more than 95 billion euro from 21 to 27, and we have 3 and 4 work program. Actually, we are in the second work program, 23-24, and we are waiting for next work program. It will be 25, and after that we will have 26 and 27, the final work program for Horizon Europe. Next, we will try to see the architecture of Horizon Europe. As we see here, we have the Pillar 1, the Pillar 2, Pillar 3, and some other mechanisms. But actually, if you see the cooperation between Africa and Europe, we will see we have the Pillar 1 and Pillar 2. Pillar 1 is kind of individual participations like ERC, European Research Council, like MSCA, and for Pillar 2, it's a collaborative project. Mainly, we look to have with us from Africa, from Europe, organizations. Each legal body, legal entity can participate in Pillar 2, but at least we need to have 3 from member state or associate country to have eligible proposal under Horizon Europe. And you have 6 clusters. From cluster 1 is cluster head, and you have the final cluster is the cluster related to food. So next. So Horizon Europe is by default is open to almost all countries. So researchers and innovators of any nationality can apply for grants like MSCA or ERC. And association for the program, actually we have 18 countries associated to Horizon Europe. And we have the last association from UK, United Kingdom, and also New Zealand. And actually in process of association, we have Morocco, and we have also Egypt, and there is some negotiation underway like Canada. So please next. So I'm just try to explain that the access to Horizon Europe funding is automatically eligible for EU funding. We call that beneficiary, and all countries, we have member states, we have associate country, and we have third countries. And for Africa, actually, we have Tunisia is associate country, but we have a lot of participation from many countries in Africa in Horizon Europe as beneficiary, and I will explain that after we have some figures. So please next. So you will see now this is the participation of African countries in Horizon 2020. It's from 2014 to 2020, and this actually Horizon Europe program from 21 to 27. As we see. We have the most participation from a lot of countries in Africa, and you see we have South Africa, we have also Kenya, we have Tunisia. This is the success rate for each country, and you have the top 23 countries in terms of participation of African countries. This give us a lot of ideas about the potential of each country in terms of participation in research and innovation program in Horizon Europe. Next. So this is the net EU contribution for all framework program, and you see now we have some countries. And we have the budget from 5 million euro to 170 million euro. And you see that I highlighted some countries with the color. We have Egypt, Tunisia, Morocco, Kenya, Ethiopia, South Africa, and lots. Next, you will see now the same picture, but only for Horizon Europe from 21 to 27. And you will see it's the same, and we see some new countries take the opportunity to be part in Horizon Europe and get funds, and this is a great for the cooperation between Europe and Africa. Next. So if we try to do profiling for those countries, and we have the first profile is the person in high performance countries like South Africa and Kenya. They maintain consistent strong performance across various metrics. So actually in Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe it's the same. And we have the profile 2 next. For profile 2, we have the surpassing expectations. Certain countries, while exhibiting a very scientific output, overall, if you see the production of scientific publications, and now the participation in Horizon Europe, you see like Ghana, Uganda, Tanzania, Zambia, and Ethiopia are working ahead closely, like to link it to Africa Initiative 1 and Africa Initiative 2. To increase their potential to excel on the continent. So it means that some mechanisms like Africa Initiative 1, like Africa Initiative 2, they give the opportunity for those countries to perform more and more. And that's why we explain that we have surpassing expectations for those countries. Please, next. So usually for EU-Africa cooperation in research and innovation, we have a lot of mechanisms, but it's a strategic partner. The EU seeks to enhance cooperation with Africa to promote actions targeted to funding locally adapted solutions to global challenges, and as we see too often to this African habitat. So we have mainly four points. The first is the public health. The second one is the green transition. And the third one, please, before. And the third one is innovation and technology. And the final one is the capacity building, the capacities for science. Next. And you see in those 4 points, we will build Africa Initiative 1, and after that, Africa Initiative 2. Please, next. And you will see that for each point, we have mainly some successful EU, AU, LNI partnerships. Like in public health, we have actually EDCTP. I will explain after. I will give you the link for EDCTP initiative. For green transition, we have also initiatives like food, nutrition, security, and sustainability architecture. And for innovation and technology, we have Enrich in Africa. It's Horizon 2020 project from 21 to 23, and it's enhanced the creation of startups in domain of innovation and technology in Africa and enhance the cooperation between Europe and Africa. Next. So now actually I will just try to present Africa Initiative 2, but actually all call topic and all call of proposal already closed. But actually European Commission works now to prepare the Africa Initiative 3. And Africa Initiative 3, we hope that we will have the first draft of this Africa Initiative 3 by September, October, or November, and we will publish all core topics in the beginning of 25. And I think this kind of Africa Initiative is the main opportunity for African countries, European countries to be together in a lot of European Horizon Europe projects. So next. So as I already told that for Africa Initiative 1 or 2, we have 4 points: is the public health, innovation, technology, green transition, and capacities for science. It's like 4 priority in terms of cooperation between EU and Africa. Next. Now we will try to see the budget of Africa Initiative 2. Africa Initiative 2 is related more to Pillar 2 in Horizon Europe architecture. And for green transition, we have more than 280 million euro. For innovation and technology, 35 million euro, and for capacities for science, 9 million euro. And I already mentioned that all core topics now closed, but we are waiting for Africa Initiative 3. Next. So mainly in FTOP portal, funding and opportunities portal, we have this kind of option to look to partner, and when you look to the portal, when we put the priority Africa, you will see that all call topics related to Africa, we have this great tool to add request, expertise request or expertise offer, and we will have a lot of flags from Africa in this tool. And waiting now for Africa Initiative 3 to see the same. And I think we will have a lot of participations after the success of Africa Initiative 1 and 2. Next, please. So for synergies in EU-Africa RNI partnership. So we have Horizon Europe, we have Africa Initiative from European Commission DG RTD, and of course with DG Interpa we have the project EDCTP 3. It's like of a lot of cool topics related to public health, and this kind of opportunity given to organizations from Africa, both from Africa and from Europe, it's great because we will have a lot of participation from organizations working with the thematic of health in Africa and in EDCTP3. Next, please, we'll see the link. So, Global Health EDCTP3 is the partnership between the European Commission, representing the European Union, and the EDCPT Association, representing the governments of European and Sub-Saharan African countries participating in the partnership. So we have kind of collaboration between association, between government, between European Commission, and the thematic of health, and we have a lot of cool topics. And when you put in Google, you put also EDCTP3, and you will see this website, and you will see that when you click on one thing, you will see a lot of cool topics, and you will see the status of each call topic, if it's open for submission or closing, and if there are some forthcoming call, and of course we communicate for us in EuroAccess Africa. Please, next. So now it's EU Innovation Interface. And I will try to share with you the link. You will see a lot of opportunities, a lot of webinars. And last year and in 2022 and 2023, we have a big event in Kenya, in Nairobi. And after that, in Cape Town, in June 23, it's EU Innovation Festival. And we have a lot of decision makers from Africa, from Europe, get together to work and to see how to build the future together. Next. So, the same, but just I want to mention that it's for EU innovation agenda. Usually we have a lot of discussion and we try to summarize the priority for Africa and for Europe and put together and work with all call topics, future call topics, and all call topics, they will be open to submission after the discussions and after the final validation from Europe and both from Africa. Next. So, just I want to mention that for Pillar 1, we have MSCA and we have ERC. And for MSCA, we have MSCA doctor networks, we have MSCA postdoctoral fellowships, we have MSCA staff exchange, we have MSCA co-fund, we have MSCA and citizens. For ERC, we have ERC starting grants, ERC consolidated grants, ERC advanced grants, ERC proof of concept, and ERC synergy grants. And this ERC and MSCA for Pillar 1 in Horizon Europe open for participation to Africa and to researchers from Africa. It's individual participation, and we will try to organize next week and the week after 4 webinars in EuroAccess Africa, and we have 2 webinars related to MSCA, one in French and one in English, and 2 webinars in ERC, one in French and one in English. Please, next, just I want to mention.
Thank you very much for highlighting these main points. What I would like to ask from you, if I look there, I think you can see me. Can you wrap up with us? What is the conclusion we really need to take from you?
Yes, the conclusion is it's mainly be proactive, be informed, and be connected to all opportunities, because we have a lot of opportunities and we have a lot of mechanisms to enhance the cooperation between Europe and Africa.
Yeah, and thank you so much.
When you will be connected, you will get the opportunity, and we will actually, as EuroTech Africa, we give a lot of services related to reinforce the participation of African countries in Horizon Europe program. So,
Thank you so much for highlighting all these opportunities, Ahmed. Let's give him one last round of applause. Thank you very much, Ahmed. As a quick check in the room, who of you is already participating in EU-Africa collaboration of any sort? Oh, so there are people who could still be more participatory, or who are maybe interested. Any people in the room? I think that's a very nice bridge to where we're going next, because our next two presentations are from people who are actively involved in these collaborations. And there are two showcase presentations that there will be for you to see how does this work, this kind of partnership that we have in place, or what do we do within the given institutions that these two speakers work in to highlight these collaborations. And the first speaker I would like to introduce to you is Hisham El Habti, the president of the University Mohammed VI Polytechnique. Please give him a round of applause.
I have 10 minutes. 10 minutes. Okay. Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Hisham El Habti. I'm the president of University Mohammed VI Polytechnique. So I have 10 minutes to just share with you the spirit of our university. It's a very young university. It was inaugurated by the King Mohammed VI in January 2017, so we had less than 7 years old. But with the very specific business model, you saw a logo there, which is OCP, which is a corporation, state-owned enterprise in Morocco that decided at some point in 2012 to build the university to work in these topics in link with what's just have been said about the green transition. So OCP took the commitment to be neutral carbon Scope 1 and Scope 2 by 2030 and Scope 3 by 2040. And to do that, there is a huge need for research and development and education, executive education. This is why at some point OCP decided to incubate UM6P, which is a full-fledged university. But from day one, UM60 was committed to the development of Africa by having this motto, which is bringing research and innovation for Africa development. So what we've done so far is to translate the African challenges, like you see them on the right of this slide, and to translate them in research topics. You see that in the left. And we started at a top-down university by building the research capabilities. And we were blessed enough or lucky enough to have a piece of land in a very small city next to Marrakesh, between Marrakesh and Casablanca, to build not just a university, but an ecosystem about innovation. And you see a lot of green. So next to the university with its labs, we have what we call the living labs, like the Green Energy Park, like the Green Smart Building Park, where the students, the researchers, have the opportunity to try to test their technologies on a real scale. We are a multi-campus university, not just we started in Ben Guerir, but we opened in Rabat, in Lyon, in the south of Morocco, just mainly research. We have a lot of coding schools in partnership with School 42 in Paris, and we have just opened to be next to what's happening here in Brussels, UM6P France, and we have just opened another branch in in Montreal, Canada. The idea here is to be very close to the innovation ecosystems. As a university, we have four main divisions. Business, it's a comprehensive university, so it's business and management, humanities, the health, and I was very happy to see that a lot of initiatives regarding the public health. So we have just opened our medical school 2 years ago, and we will open our hospital next September. But UM6P is mainly science and technology. More than 60% of our faculty, of our students, are in the science and technology division. Number of students, it's a very young university. It's a very exponential growth. We are about 5,700 students, As we are a greenfield university, we are a very young university, we decided from day one to be innovative in terms of education by having some specific programs with no degree, which is about 3,000 students, mainly in the coding. So the school is free of charge. There is no degree, but there is a certificate. And you have the conventional program, which are the accredited curricula, about 2,700 students. There, we have 60% female, 40% male, even in the engineering. I know that in Europe are struggling with 20%. We have 50%, up to 60%. And we have 80% of our students who are scholarships holders. So it's a main opportunity for the youth coming from all around Africa, from 33 countries, representing about 9% of our students to have access to education and mainly to research. As you see, we have about 700 PhD students so far for 2023-2024. Partnerships, and I will discuss that later on. From day one, we have now about 180 partners all over the world to give the opportunity to our students to have access to the labs, to have access to the campuses all around the world. And but in Africa, as our topic is Africa, we are a member of 3 main networks. Reform in the area of the agriculture. It's more than 120 schools and universities. Arua, we have just joined, I think 2 months ago, and we are in the HA Impact network supported by the World Bank. We have more than 50 partners in 20 African countries. We have a program, and we will discuss that further later on, which is Excellence in Africa, in partnership with the EPFL, that was launched a few years ago, and the huge success. And I think it's a good example to how to enhance the partnership between EuroTech or all the European universities with the African universities. This is an example, and we'll share more details later on. We, from day one, we talk about innovation and entrepreneurship as a building block of our DNA. So we started by developing an ecosystem in Morocco, next to our campus in Ben Gurir, in an incubator called Stargate. For all the value chain, from the pre-incubation to the venture building. We have our own VCs. We have 2 of them, one based in Morocco and one based in the US. The idea here is to give the opportunity to the students, to the researchers, to build their startups if they have good ideas. And we are focusing on the deep tech by giving them access to our labs. We partnered with the MIT Sandbox. And we are at the 6th cohort now, and we partnered too with Plug and Play for the acceleration phase for the startups. We are now investing in more than 27 startups in Morocco and about 10 outside Morocco. The last slide is this one is about the commitment to the local development. We started as a university in a very small city, a very medium revenue city, 80,000 inhabitants. There was nothing. It's a small city between Casablanca and Marrakesh. And in end of 2012, the construction of the university started. And we had the commitment from day one to impact positively the local communities. You see, and this is another topic for the global partnership between universities, is you see the quinoa. So in this region now, it's due to the climate change, the zone is more and more arid, so the wheat doesn't work anymore, so we have to change the crop by introducing the quinoa. But what is the right seed, what's the right moment, what is the right practice? This is new for Morocco. So you have a young lady there. She's faculty at UM6P, and she's working on that and sharing her knowledge pro bono. This is our commitment to development of the community with the local farmers. It started a few years ago. And it's an example of the partnership because she spent 2 months at MIT in a lab to understand how crops are working in very tough conditions. She came back, she worked in the lab, and she is sharing her knowledge with the local communities. So this is another example for how the partnership could impact positively the livelihood of people. Just I will finish by the number of faculty. And so today we have about 300 permanent faculty coming from about 40 countries all over the world. Another thing about the partnership, we have a lot of people working in other universities, Moroccan or African diaspora, helping us by hosting our students in their labs. And this is another way of partnering between universities. So I will stop here because I have just 10 minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We had an example from the Moroccan, the African side of the collaboration. Let's look at the European side. For this, I would like to invite our second speaker in this collaboration part, which is Walter Timo de Vries. He's a professor of land management and the academic coordinator of TUM Africa at the Technical University of Munich.
Oh, see how this works. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Also for me, the 10 minutes. Please give me a notice. Yes, I'm representing Technical University of Munich. Maybe I start with, press the button. Green. This one. Okay. Some general statistics. As we always do, I think what we see over the last couple of years is that that TUM is growing very rapidly. So we see that in the number of people, but also in the kinds of projects that we do. We have about 52,000 students at the moment. Out of that, there are almost 2,000 students from Africa. So that number is also growing. And that's also a large share of our current student population. Maybe just to talk about the TUM Africa initiatives. I think when I joined TUM about 10 years ago, we saw that there was a lot of fragmentation in the collaboration with African partners across many domains and also across various countries. And at that time, there was the idea to consolidate and align these various initiatives much more so that we know a little bit more of each other and that also projects could be better aligned. So there were 3 key elements in the strategy that was proposed at that time. First is to establish a more coherent TUM Africa network and also foster community engagement in the ecosystem of the universities. Secondly, to define focus areas of cooperation, so do no longer chase all sorts of initiatives, but provide more focus. And thirdly, also partly scale up certain pilots or try out certain pilots and scale that up to bigger initiatives. So let's talk about all of those 3. First of all, the alignment of different initiatives. One of the first things which I started was put on a piece of paper what are all the initiatives that are actually taking place. I met at airports different colleagues and I didn't know what they were doing. And similarly, African people met each other at TUM. So there was clearly a need to know of that. And we started at that time a TUM Africa newsletter that looked very unprofessional in the beginning, but over time it became a more professional mechanism to at least convey the message, what's happening, but also to create a kind of historical record of all the initiatives that were taking place so that you could also align with your colleagues at some point in time if you are doing a particular project. So we see now that this TUM Africa newsletter is not just a mechanism of exchange of what is doing and communication of what's going on, but also reaches now other communities outside the university. So we get newspapers coming to us, what's happening, or maybe if there are certain projects, then we can refer to that TUM newsletter. And it also allowed us to get better in touch with the Bavarian research community and also the funding community in general, and later on also with the German community and funding community. So this has really led to a better communication and distribution strategy. The second point, or maybe in relation to that, we see that we got a better engagement with different communities. So currently within the university there have been a number of round tables on TUM Africa in general. We have TUM Global Week, where also certain initiatives were more centralized. And we have various initiatives in the university that somehow already had a relation in the long run, such as TUM Empower Africa, which is actually a bottom-up initiative of a number of students and staff that talked about electrification initiatives in Africa and created their own private NGO, you could say, to deal more with those sort of issues. In addition to that, we aligned with the University of Bayreuth, which is another university in Bavaria, in Bayern, that is dealing with Africa studies in general, so more humanities, you could say. But with that university, we reached an agreement to do a so-called Africa certification program, where if you are interested in doing something with and for Africa, you can also learn what Africa really is and what sort of aspects you need to know before you engage in those sort of initiatives. And there have been a number of spin-off activities, as I said, with the BIFOR, which is also a Bavarian agency that deals with promoting research in the area, with in particular the BIFOR Africa office. So there we now align, if there's any initiative or idea to start a project, we align directly with that agency and a number of other agencies in that area. A second point was to focus a little bit more on the cooperation. That is not only in terms of countries, but also in terms of themes. Currently, we have focused, or we have set up an institutional partnership with KNUST in Kumasi, Ghana. We noticed that there were already in the past many projects with KNUST in Ghana. So then we said, yeah, why not create a more substantial and comprehensive partnership with that university so that we can also discuss what are now the most important issues and where are the people also most active. So the current 4 thematic foci are medicine or global health, energy, water, food, or water, energy, food nexus, you could say, land management, which is my own field, and artificial intelligence. And even in these fields, we see already quite some alignment. So we, for example, we align with artificial intelligence in the land management field, for example, but also in the 2 other fields. Then there are a number of partnerships and initiatives. So there's the possibility to also from the university itself to stimulate strategic partnerships of innovation and sustainable development. We have done that, as said, with KNUST in Ghana, but there's also possibilities through internal incentive funds. These are usually seed funds where you can set up or advance a partnership that is already existing. And there have been many projects with African partners that were funded in that regard. Currently, we see that there are approximately 160 collaboration of TUM professorships or chairs with universities in the African continent. So we see that also their consolidation has taken place. As said, at the moment, it has resulted in also an increase of number of students, international students from Africa, currently about 1,700, but gradually increasing. There's also more structurally formats in the collaborations with African partners, so there we also see some consolidation. We see that third-party funding has increased, and we have a special program which we call the TUM Africa Talent Program, where we connect PhD researchers from TUM with PhD researchers from African universities, where they can also work together, and we have an exchange. So they come to TUM, and TUM students go to the African countries. Now, what's the outlook? I think we want to consolidate more. We want to expand also the collaboration with African partners, especially in the field of teaching and research, of course, but also looking for new formats. And we want to get stronger engagement in the fields of entrepreneurship. So not only design new things and develop new things, but also get more spin-offs of those projects. And one of those is also the TUM Seed project, where we see electrification projects in collaboration with sustainable entrepreneurship in products and services in relation to electrification. So thank you very much for your attention, and if there are any questions, I'm available for you. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Walter Timo, and please stay with us because we're moving into the panel, so find your favorite chair, have a seat, and then I'll bring up the other panelists because we are going to be with 5 people on stage, 6 actually. Walter Timo de Vries, you've already met. Hisham El Habdi, you've also already met. Andreas Mortensen is new to you, just like Claire Morel, and you've already met Matteo Gatti. Please come to the stage. Let's give him a warm round of applause. Welcome. As you can see, we have 3 microphones for you to share. I expect that we can do that we can make it work. Welcome on stage, and what I would like to start with is to introduce all of you to the people in the audience. And for that, I have one question for every one of you, and the request is to answer this question briefly so that we can get to know you a little bit. We know who you are, and we know a little bit about your background, and that will give us some guidance into kickstarting the discussion that we will have afterwards. For the people joining us online, if you have any questions, you can of course put them in the Slido once the panel is discussing and when we're moving. If the people in the audience can hold on to their questions and ask them when there's an appropriate time, then that would be perfect. And in that way, we can have a combination of questions from the room and also questions from online. So for our speakers, I will start with Hisham El Habdi. You're the president of the University Mohammed VI Polytechnique. As we've already discussed, the first question for you is, you already discussed the collaboration of EU-Africa a little bit, and then from your perspective, what is the most important thing in these collaborations?
Thank you so much. I think the most important thing is not to be in this paternalizing attitude. Yeah. So it's we have to consider that we have a common language, that it was said, which is science. Science is, we have a motto at UM6P, which is technology is global, but innovation is local. So the
innovation is?
Local, yeah. Because it depends on the conditions. But technology is global. So everyone is working in clean tech, or the deep tech, and other topics. So I think number one is to consider that everyone is at the same level in terms of the capability of producing science.
Yeah.
The difference is in terms of the equipment, for instance, the labs. We don't have the same equipment.
Let's get into that. Yeah. But the first one is equal partnerships.
Yeah. Second thing is science is open. So everyone here is, I think, at each university is here to advance knowledge, to produce knowledge and advance knowledge. And number 3, to see Africa as a huge opportunity for research, really huge in different areas: food security, health, digital. We could leapfrog a lot of things. Yeah. We have no legacy. We are greenfield. So we have just to switch our point of view regarding Africa. So we'll stop here.
Thank you very much. Let's switch that point of view and listen to our next speaker. We've met Walter Timo de Vries. We've looked at your collaboration examples and the initiative that you are leading at TOOM. You are a professor of land management and also a member of the TOOM Africa Initiative at Technical University of Munich, TOOM. Is your perspective different looking from the Europe side? What is to you the most important thing in EU-Africa collaborations? Yeah, it will be on. Sure. You will... No?
Yes, to a large extent, I fully agree. The sort of shared principles and also equality in the partnerships is very crucial. Because if you turn it around or if you flip it, what goes wrong in projects, then it is if there is a sense of unequal or the perception of unequal partnership that, okay, you work on the same level, but the one contains the budget, for example. These are kind of things you need to discuss. And I think secondly, you need to have affinity as a European partner to work for and with African partners. If you don't have that, and you also you sort of want to get your own interest going, then I think it doesn't work as well.
No. Yeah. So it's also the equality that's very important. You can leave the microphone on. Claire, do you have a microphone in front of you? I would like to introduce you to Claire Morel. She's the head of the unit in charge of the Marie Sklodowska-Curie Actions, also known as the Marie Curie Actions, which is a lot easier to pronounce. And Claire, you're part of the European Commission, and from your perspective, how can the Marie Sklodowska-Curie Actions offer an open door for African-European partnerships to improve capacities for science? Those words we've heard before today.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. And our colleague from EuroAccess, Ahmed, has already indicated that the Marie Sklodowska-Curie Actions, or the MSCA, are an important door or part of our cooperation with Africa. By the way, Ahmed said that MSCA or the ERC are based on individual participation. It's not the case, I'm sorry. But for example, our biggest action are the doctoral networks, which involve large networks of universities, research centers, and academic partners. So the MSCA is part of the excellent pillar of Horizon Europe, and it offers many different opportunities, starting with funding doctoral programs, postdoctoral fellowships, collaborative projects through staff exchanges, and it also co-funds doctoral programs and postdoctoral fellowships. And it has an impact, obviously, on individual researchers because it opens them large networks. It allows them to develop their expertise, to have access to training opportunities, etc. But the impact is also very strong on institutions that are participating in this network because it allows them to increase their international visibility, their attractiveness, and also participate and have access to large international network.
Yeah, thank you. I think we will dive deeper into this.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so because MSCA is the most international part of Horizon Europe. About 40% of our researchers are from outside the EU. And Africa is both in individual researchers, but institutions as well are very present in MSCA. So I think it's an interesting door for the participation of African organization.
Yeah, thank you very much. We will dive into this more. Some of you in the room already highlighted that they were interested in these collaborations. So I think it's very interesting, Claire, to see a bit more what are the options, the opportunities, what did we learn in the past and what can we learn for the future. Yeah. Our next speaker is Matteo Gatti. You've already met Matteo as senior researcher at the Institut Polytechnique de Paris. And Matteo, you already have quite some experience with European funding schemes like the MSCA. And could you tell us a bit more how they benefited your research and how we can benefit from impact collaborations with Africa?
Yes, good morning again, everybody. So I'm a theoretical physicist. I work in the field of computational material science. I'm very great, as European researcher, I'm very grateful to European Union because I have benefited from funding schemes from the very beginning of my career when I was a master's student and all along the career. The funding schemes I've met are all belonging more or less to the Pillar 1, excellent science, of what is now called excellent science, Pillar 1 in Horizon Europe. And they are of three kinds: individual grants, like ERC and Marie Curie. Not only Marie Curie are not only individual grants, but also individual grants for postdocs. And these kind of grants allow for research at the cutting edge of the field, and they push forward the frontier of knowledge. The second kind of grants are those related to network activities. They support collaborative research and building up of communities. And the most beneficial funding scheme I met in my life was called Network Excellence. The goal was to obtain durable integration of networks. And this has been achieved in our case. I now belong to a network of more than 100 teams in Europe. So we built up a community there. That's very important. The third kind of grant is access to facilities, computational and experimental facilities. Advanced experimental and computational facilities are not available everywhere, also in Europe. So that's very important to support access to facilities. This is also important because, especially for large-scale facilities, this helps to build up a community of users. So all this is very important and very beneficial to Europe.
Yeah, so the funds have really had a very broad impact on your career.
Now, when it comes to Africa, if we look at these three kinds of schemes, concerning individual grants, there is the ARISE initiative, which is very good for excellent scientists in Africa. So these are individual grants like ERC and Marie Curie, and very good. I think we should support this kind of grants. But then I think there is a blind spot, which is funds for excellent science that are related to basic research, that are collaborative, bottom-up, and the keyword here is dedicated to Africa, targeted to Africa. This is missing at the moment. Yeah. And the third point is also support to access to facilities, experimental and computational facilities in Europe, coming from Africa. This is also missing. I give you an example. Europe is spending a lot.
Can you hold on to the example?
Just the last
okay.
Example. Europe is spending a lot of money to buy supercomputers. There is an initiative that is called EuroHPC. We are spending millions just to buy single computers. And researchers outside Europe cannot access these computers.
Cannot access them.
No. The result of this is that in our collaborations with African researchers, we use computers in the US.
Thank you very much. So it has impacted your career, and there are also wishes, things that should be changed. Let's meet the last speaker of this panel, Andreas Mortensen. You're the Associate Vice President for Research at EPFL. And for you, why is it important for EPFL as an institution to strengthen the collaboration between Europe and Africa?
Thank you. Matteo and Hisham have actually already given a lot of the good reasons for that. I would like to add one, which is kind of obvious but often forgotten. We're neighbors. Generally, an ocean separates continents. We have the Mediterranean between us, and that, frankly, is very rich in history, but not that big to cross. We are also, I think it is a fact, intertwined. A lot of European citizens are of African origin. A lot of our culture is developing with roots that come actually from Africa. And there is a proximity on both dimensions of geography and culture between our two continents. And so therefore I would like to add that it is obvious that we should collaborate. And not only is it obvious, it's also exciting.
Yeah.
The potential, as we know, is immense. All the more so that science, given the challenges that we face, is evolving towards things that can only be addressed in a very, let's say, collaborative, common approach. And needless to say, Africa not only plays a key role, but can play an even greater role in that. And from a European perspective, where we also see some of those big challenges, plus some, that is exciting, that is empowering, and extremely rich, because what the opportunities for growth, and I don't mean opportunities only for us, but common opportunities, are huge.
Yeah, thank you. You mentioned the challenges, just like Matteo mentioned a few challenges. Let's start there. What are the main challenges that you see when it comes to developing talent or building capacities for science that should be added to the ones that we've already heard before? I would recommend you to hold on to these microphones so you can easily switch between one another. Who can I give the word to first? What are the big challenges that you see? Claire?
I think in the case of the Marie Skłodowska reaction, the main challenge for us is access to information. There are only a few organizations, universities, which have access to this information, and they are the ones who have repeated participation in the program. So we have set up a network, what we call the NCPs, National Contact Points, and their role is exactly to do this, to promote information, to disseminate, and to help potential applicants to prepare applications. But we have these national contact points only in, I think it's in 4 countries, so it's in Nigeria, South Africa, Cape Verde, and Ethiopia. So it's clearly, yes, although we've been promoting, we've been speaking to universities, to national authorities, telling them without these national contact points, and we have them in Europe as well, you're really losing lots of chances to participate. So there are, of course, other information sources like EuroAccess. We saw Ahmed earlier. We also have a large alumni association who can help. But I think for us, it's really this. And we regularly, and I see it as well in the question we're receiving, how can I find partners in Europe? But I have ideas on this, but I suppose that will be maybe the next question.
Yeah. Hisham, you had a challenge.
Yeah. In addition to that, and I will build on that, we have the Erasmus Plus, which is with a lot of local contact, and it does work. Because there are people who are talking about that. For me, the other two other challenges. The first one is linked to the administrative part. So bringing people from Africa to Europe is not that easy. So we have to acknowledge that. So in terms of visa, it's not that easy. So number one. Number two is the funding. So once we get the information, as the funding are sustainable with a long view about developing that. The research needs money, needs funding, stable funding. So far, there is no idea about how this funding could be sustainable.
Yeah. Did you want to respond?
No, I won't, but I can maybe do it later on, because you mentioned Erasmus. In fact, Erasmus has already in the past decade been open to the world. The participation in Erasmus from Africa is extremely, has been developing a lot. As you were saying, there is a dedicated budget under Erasmus for cooperation with Africa, which helps. And I think that a lot of the partnerships that have been developed under Erasmus can be used, in fact, and all these networks can be used to apply for the Marie Skłodowska reactions.
And Andreas, you mentioned challenges. What kind of challenges, can you specify them?
Well, I can add one, which is the dichotomy, the difference, the contrast that exists between the time constant for research projects and the time constant in academia. If you think of it, academia is, if there's any industry with a long time constant, it's ours. How many industries have brands that existed 500 years ago? Which doesn't exclude, of course, young universities like ours, but that difference creates at a smaller level, of course, in terms of time, I think perhaps one of the greatest challenges. And projects are 4 years long. A career is 40 years long. And we don't want necessarily just projects in Africa, we want colleagues in Africa. We want colleagues, we want partnerships that last over a professional lifetime. Yep. Those are the ones, from my little bit of experience, that I've seen work best. And those are the ones that lead to things that really are in Africa, as opposed to things that happen in Africa. And that, I think, is one of the biggest challenges. We work on things that have time constants that are generally too short to have lasting impact.
Is there any challenge we need to add, or I see a lot of nods with regards to Andreas? Yeah?
Yeah, I also wanted to say continuity, and that's not only a problem for Africa, it's both for Europe and Africa. Mobility is very much there's lots of initiatives and incentives for mobility in Europe with our universities, and we also see a kind of brain drain from Africa of good researchers that are then leaving that. So continuity in projects, continuity in staff members and researchers, I see as a big challenge.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Just talk. Yeah.
Okay, I totally agree. Brain drain to rich countries is a challenge. There is also brain drain that is intersectorial. For example, brain drain to sectors like medicines or engineering with respect to basic science in Africa. And I would like to add to this concerning research, there is a risk of isolation. In Africa, there are very good, excellent groups, research groups in Africa, but the risk is that they remain isolated because Africa is huge. It's a huge continent. And another challenge is that very often priority is given to teaching with respect to research. And again, this is a challenge for us if we want to collaborate and do research together. And I think that we should aim to quality people development everywhere. This is a key. It's very important to have excellent colleagues we can work together.
Yeah. And do you have colleagues you've been working with for a long time, the part of your career so far?
Yes, very nice colleagues, very good colleagues everywhere in Africa. Yeah. And I think the driving motivation to work together.
Yeah. And Hisham, do you also have career-lasting partnerships?
Not me, not me personally, but we are very young, as I said, very young university. So I want to highlight the partnership we have with the EPFL called Excellence in Africa. It started, I think, 4 years ago. The idea is to give the opportunity to the young researchers coming from all around Africa, working on African topics, staying in their universities. This is very important regarding the brain drain. It was from day one, and having like a mentorship from faculty from EPFL and from UM6P. So this is the second cohort. It was granted, I think, a few weeks ago for about 21 PhD students, in addition to, I think, 19 the first cohort. This is number one. Number two is the junior faculty. So, a lot of junior faculty are struggling with education, and we want them to do research. So, we are giving grants to this junior faculty, should be mentored by faculty from EPFL, UM6P, and this we have just granted the second cohort. The third thing is about digital education. We we work with I think 16 African universities in the sub-Saharan African countries, giving them the opportunity to have access to digital studios. It was just after COVID 2020. To enable them to develop their digital skills with co-training from EPFL and from UM6P. And the idea behind this program was, what is the best thing we can do for African countries? It is to build capabilities. And build capabilities is through research. And the EPFL, they are at the top in this area. We have to work on African challenges, African topics, and the students should stay in Africa with They have to go to Lausanne. They have to come to Ben Guerir for some research internship. But at the end of the day, they got degrees from their own universities.
Yeah.
So this is
also an example of where it starts in a lot of careers.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you already mentioned, Claire, there are a lot of opportunities. Can you highlight some of them? How do we build long-lasting partnerships?
Yes, so maybe something I forgot to mention is that the MSCA is bottom-up. So it means really it's up to researchers, institutions to decide how they want to cooperate and in which topics. So there is no targeted calls. By the way, there are currently ongoing calls for all our actions, and the deadlines are starting from September. So if you're interested, I would really advise you have time now to prepare application for doctoral programs, postdoctoral fellowships, co-funded projects, or staff exchanges. So and also we do not only involve academic organizations, but also non-academic partners. So it can be enterprises, it can be SMEs, it can be hospitals, it can be museum, whatever. We are very much open to the non-academic world. So your question was the opportunities. I mean, I would need to do a proper, probably information day where I would advise which actions is the easiest one. At least if you have never participated in MSCA, as I said, but you have experience with the Erasmus program. Usually, your partners in Europe know both the Erasmus and the and Horizon Europe and MSCA, and they can really open you the door to European partnerships. We also have, as I said, a network of national contact points, and they have developed, we have a project that supports national contact points, because it's true that when you start, you need a bit of guidance, mentoring. So we have this as well. We have a project that supports national contact points, and on that project, we have a partner search tool. So I don't know if this is interesting, but we can afterwards as well provide information on this partner search tool, which allows partners in in Africa to find partners in Europe, both at all levels. I mean, starting with doctoral level and going up to more experienced researchers.
I think it's a perfect answer to one of the questions I see appearing online.
Yes.
I'm Bizra Gezagen. I'm from DBU Ethiopia, and I'm in electrical and computer engineering. How can I get a partner for renewable energy research?
Exactly. So this is a possibility. We can send you the link afterwards to this project, which is supporting NCPs, and that has a partner search tool. We also have, I mean, we saw that EuroAccess as well is the portal for researchers all over the world who are, I think they also have a partner search tool, and we are publishing on EuroAccess all the positions. So all MSCA positions at doctoral level are openly, they are published on EuroAccess, and some postdoc as well for our co-funded actions. So I think, I mean, there is a lot of available tools, but it's true that it might be difficult, I think, at the beginning to, let's say, to find the I mean, and this is one of the main, I mean, I see from the question we receive, the main maybe obstacles, where to start from. But I think EuroAccess and the national contact points are a good start.
Walter Timo, you have a lot of experience in building these bridges between people. Is there anything that you could add based on your experience?
Yes, well, you have to know people in order to build bridges, I guess. I think there's multiple ways of doing that. I see the DBU Ethiopia. I think it's probably Bahidar University. We have, for example, a partner that works in renewable energy at Bahidar University. So that would be a direct link. We got our partners primarily through existing contacts of previous projects and of alumni of our study program. So the 1,700 African students that we have at TUM are potential partners directly. We have currently, or actually a number of my staff, which came from Nigeria, from Ghana, is currently working at respective universities all over Africa. So, yeah, these are direct partners. And you can build that up through maybe joint co-supervision for projects, setting up joint publications, for example, at the lower end, but also work on actual projects and acquiring large amounts of funding for, if you like, or smaller amounts of funding. Yeah. So there are multiple possibilities. Yeah.
And are there also bigger strategic plans to advance the Europe-Africa collaboration in one of your institutions? Andreas Hichem?
I would like to know what you mean by grander. I mean, we have a number of initiatives that go from research projects on a longer scale to centers for collaboration. But obviously, the grand projects, of course, call for national money. And those monies, unfortunately, don't exist at the universities themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, of course. Just to build on that, what we have in mind is at some point, perhaps next year, 2025, is to organize the first, I think, of its kind, huge conference, Technology for the Development of Africa, and bring in all the universities who are interested in, really sincerely interested in the development of this continent to come to share their knowledge. We will host students from all around Africa to see how they could build these bridges. Yeah, because to build a bridge, you need to know the other part. So yeah, this is for us to just build on all the initiative we have done so far, and to enable all African to have access to these technologies. And we are really inviting the EuroTech, but even beyond, there are other players from the US who are interested in that to come, to share, to develop bridges between them and African universities.
Andreas?
I was thinking of one thing. Matteo, you're a computational material scientist, right? And I noticed this interesting thing. I have a colleague at EPFL, close colleague, Nicola Marzari, whom you might know. Francesco Selacci is another colleague. And I noticed that both of them go to conferences in Africa. I'm a material scientist too, but the kind that gets their hands dirty. How come that happen? How does it happen that MRS organizes conferences in Africa that draw many top European scientists?
You have a... Yeah.
Yeah, I know Nicola very well. We are part of the same African network. It's called ASESMA. So we go together to conferences in Africa. And the reason is that science in Africa is as great as in Europe. So there is a lot of interest to go to Africa to know how science is working there and which are the opportunities, which are the challenges, and to meet people that are, as I said at the beginning, diverse. They have a different background, and this is a very important opportunity for us to make progress in the basic research. So there are different motivations, scientific subjects and people, different people.
Because I would argue that, I mean, a conference that is held regularly is something that, you know, if it's held every 3 years, you have 4 conferences, bang, 12 years. And those are places, okay, they do emit carbon dioxide because one has to fly, but the opportunities created by a conference are huge. It addresses, in a way, the second point that's on the screen here.
Let's
it's
read
a
it
source
out
of
because
information.
the audience doesn't know.
Conferences and schools.
Yeah, which is to agree with the speakers on the importance the third, on the importance of access to information and on finding suitable and trustable cooperation partners either in Europe or in Africa. Yeah. I must observe, I mean, this doesn't exist in my field. I mean, I'm a metallurgist, so it's a different type of material science. But if there were conferences in Africa organized by an organization that crosses the Mediterranean, which is the case for MRS, I think a lot of bridges would be built. And that does not necessarily mean a lot of money.
I totally agree, and this is to overcome the challenge I was mentioning earlier, which is this risk of isolation in Africa. Access to the global community is super important for our African colleagues, and it's not always obvious. For example, not everywhere there is access to journals, to scientific journals, because they are very expensive. So it's very important to be aware of what is going on in the global research. And schools are very important to meet the young generation, to train the young generation. And schools should be organized by African colleagues together with colleagues coming from Western countries, and we should go there and meet people there. Also to realize how research can be done in a different way. And again, networks are the key.
And are often created at conferences.
Exactly, yeah.
Let's see if there are any questions from the audience so far. I see one hand over there. Let's start here.
Thank you so much. So I'm Professor Yaboum. I'm the director of Institut Pasteur in Bangui, and I'm really happy to have that discussion. I think it's Professor Isham who mentioned how huge is the continent. But when we look at the map that was presented by Professor Ahmed, there are a couple of countries, Central African Republic, Cameroon a bit, Guinea, Niger, and Equatorial Guinea, quite a number of countries. And what those countries have in common, they do not really speak English, sorry. So they are Francophone, French-speaking countries or Lusophone countries. So I'm wondering, how can we be more intentional on bringing all those countries on board so that they can also be, one, in the position to apply to those grants, because some of those grants are quite complex, even to understand and be able to write properly, which does not mean that they don't do good science or they're not able to host those projects. So how can we do to have more diversity and to ensure that those countries also have access to those funding? Thank you.
I would just build on that. I think the answer will be there. Yeah, I agree with you. Morocco is French-speaking, but all the research at UM6P is done in English. All the graduate studies are in English because the research is done in English. Number two, and you're right, it's very complex to understand how this word working for the ARC. Yeah, you need to invest in terms of training of especially the young faculty, junior faculty. So we are doing this at the level of UM6P, bringing people who are used to apply. The third thing, it was said before, the success rate is 15%. So it's a huge amount of time just writing. It's I learned that from people coming from the US, especially from the US. It's a skill, a really skill. You have to. You have to develop that, and you know how it does work. And after that, you're going from 15% to perhaps 20% to 25%. But this is what we are doing at the level of UM6P.
So there's teaching. Is there also a specific? Your question was also specifically about French English.
Yeah, French,
I'll be with you.
Yes. So it's actually, how can we, as he mentioned, how can we build that capacity in those countries so that they are also able to properly apply? Because if not, they will just be left behind of all those projects.
Yeah, I will just go back to the Erasmus Plus, because we hosted the Erasmus Plus conference a few months ago in our campus. And it was 2 days, lots of universities from all around Europe and some from America to learn how to apply, because it's a science. So it's just to find the hook. After that, it works. It's not that easy. You need to build the capabilities. Yeah, you have to be aware. It's a very complex topic.
Yes, I mean, you're right. I think the application for Horizon Europe has to be made in English, but once the researchers work together, they can choose the language. So if your researchers, or if they are seconded to an organization in a French-speaking country, they do not have to speak English. So I think this is at application stage, yes, for publication probably as well. But during the work itself, there are multi-country international teams. So it depends very much where you're sending your researchers, or where European researchers are sent. I mean, really, it's all possible languages. But it's true that application stage, the application has, for Horizon Europe, for MSCA, it has to be done in English. And here, if you do not have the capacity, you're part of a consortium, so I mean, there is always maybe there are some organizations that might have more skills to apply. When it comes to Erasmus Plus, Erasmus is not only a mobility program. I mean, there is also some capacity building actions. Here, it's a big difference for Erasmus because it's decentralized within Europe. So here, the application can be made in the language of the country. So it's a bit different. I think there is more linguistic diversity in Erasmus than in Horizon Europe. But once you start working, there is no obligation, obviously, to speak English. I mean, the language of your consortium can be French if this is what you decide.
Yeah, the strategy that we applied to include Francophone and Lusophone countries was actually threefold. One was to take a geographic focus, such as Southern Africa or Central Africa, whereby you combine both English and Francophone countries, like take, for example, Rwanda and Burundi, which are sort of French and English at the same time. Burundi is more French. So that would be a geographic focus. Another is a thematic focus. The Great Green Wall of Africa crosses actually multiple countries with multiple institutions and multiple languages. So, and the topic could be land and water, or the integrated land and water issues. Now there, again, that thematic focus allows also to work with multiple countries. And the third, and that's what we are doing with publishers, so for academic publications, most are obviously in English. But with book publishers, we usually reach an agreement that we get, obviously, the permission to publish in English, and then copyrights are there. But then we also get the right to translate it in any language that we want. So actually the copyright of the translation is then ours, so the consortium. And I think that helps a lot. Yeah.
Oh, thank you very much. Looking at the questions that we've received online, I think most of them are also related to what you mentioned before, Claire, to the partnerships and how to find partnerships in specific subjects. So those are the things we mainly see popping up online. How do we find collaborations? How do we find partners on specific subjects? So I think there is a big need for the communication that you mentioned before, for it to be public, become public, and to make sure that people can find their partnerships. Are there any other questions here in the room? And let's move on. So in these collaborations that we have, and also listening to the presentation from Ahmed before, with the pillar of capacities of science, what are other things that we should take into account that we haven't mentioned yet to build these capacities for science?
I think it was mentioned that the success rate in when applying to European programs is quite low, especially in Pillar 1. Especially, I mean, for MSc, for example, the success rate for our postdoctoral fellowship is low. It's around 15%. But we have one action which is called staff exchanges, where which is the most international part of MSCA, which is maybe not always well known, but the success rate now can be up to 30-40% in some cases, and it allows. It's a very flexible tool, and it allows researchers in Africa, researchers in Europe to be seconded to another organization, and it allows organizations to work together on a research and innovation project, very flexible, and you do not need to, let's say, to leave, because that's another issue, to leave your country for a long period of time. You can be seconded from 1 month to 12 months, because we mentioned before there can be visa issues. It can be complicated as well to move with the family. So I would advise interested or people looking for a way to enter into the Marie Sklodska Action and Horizon Europe to try this action. It's called Staff Exchanges. There is an ongoing call. And okay, I mean, we can send you the links to everything that I'm mentioning here, maybe afterwards, so that you can easily find the information.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you very much. So the staff exchange, I see a lot of people making notes, so I think this is one that's interesting to people, yes? anything else that we can do? Matteo?
I think, again, it's very important to aim to quality people development and networking activities where we could mobilize our energies, and these network activities should be targeted to Africa. I think it's very important.
And what do you mean when you say networking activities?
Exactly. They are scientific collaborations. Of course, that's the basis. But we need mobilities, we need research schools and workshops. We should use opportunities like digital learning. We should have schemes that are mentorship schemes, especially for the young lecturers. We could have joint supervisions. We should train the trainers in other countries. And I think it's very important to support especially the early stage researchers in Africa.
Yeah. And you say we should train. What is then the exchange? What should the European people be trained in from the African people, and what should the African people be trained in from the European people?
Exchange is very important. There are very different kinds of doing research and education. And these have to be linked to the local challenges. So it's very important to being related to the local challenges that are different in different areas of the world, and we can learn a lot from these different local challenges.
Yeah. Can you give an example of one of the local challenges that you've come across?
For example, a lack of electricity, which is also an opportunity for us in the rich world, because a challenge that we have in Africa is inequality, but the challenge that we have in the rich world is sustainability. How we can do research reducing our impact. So, for example, how we can do research without having electricity all the time. And this we can learn working with colleagues that have this kind of experience.
Yeah, I see you nod.
Yeah. I do agree. I will give the example in the health, because we talked to the health. In Morocco, about 20 million people have had access to public insurance, public health insurance. So a lot of people among them, I think they have never taken the medication, for instance, the drugs. So for researchers in the area from the US or from Europe, this is a huge opportunity to see public health differently from another point of view, especially people with different genome, with different connection to the medication or to the medication. And when I change with people from the US, from Europe, this is just a huge opportunity to work on this new topics. Second thing is regarding the climate change. Africa is responsible, I think, for less than 4% of the global emissions. But this is the the continent which is most suffering. And I could share with you what's happening in Morocco. This is the 6th year of drought. It never happened. So we have to change everything regarding the food security, regarding the agriculture. So we have to introduce new crops. We have to develop new uses of water. We have to develop leveraging on technology. Now we have this is for someone from Europe who is never even this year. I think you have a lot of water. We have a lot of rain. This is another way of having access to new research topics. So this is, I think, how we should look at Africa, a huge land of opportunities in terms of research in different areas.
very prosaically, if I may, I mean, to bounce on what I heard about the secondment program. Being a computational material scientist, you need a computer, screen, electricity. Being an experimental material scientist like myself, you need a whole lot more. You need machine shops, you need equipment, you need to run, let's say, mechanical tests, and darn, the electricity went off, so you need a generator next door, and so forth and so on. I think that partnering program, if it can last over a time constant, which is closer to that of a career than to that of a project, is an excellent thing. I've noted when, in the few visits I had in laboratories in Africa, I found one that was fantastic, and this was a professor in Africa who managed, through a friendship, literally a friendship with a colleague in Europe, to get help when it was needed. E.g., this expensive machine breaks down, how the heck do I repair it? And they literally would exchange help experimentally getting the machine in Africa fixed by people who exist in Europe but don't exist yet in Africa. That kind of partnership, I think, would be a great thing to support. If it's underutilized, then heck, utilize it. But again, the time constant should be long. It should be something that that may need renewal, but can be renewed a great number of times. And I will then finish by proposing something maybe semi-crazy, but that one should perhaps also sponsor exchanges between universities, not just at the faculty or student level, but at the level of technicians and of the infrastructure of the universities, because those people who repair machines actually do contribute to universities as well.
Can I answer just this point? I should have mentioned that the staff exchange action is open to technicians, to managers,
Very
to administrators. So administrative staff, to doctoral candidates, the staff exchange, and the one that I mentioned, which is the easiest one probably to enter, and it can be a stepping stone to maybe larger type of cooperation. It's open to anybody having a role in research and innovation. And it's one of the rare, in fact, type of cooperation projects where technicians have access. Yeah, they can be seconded to any organization within the network to up to 1 year.
And this long-term continuity or long-term collaboration is something that keeps popping up. For the researchers present, is there an example you have? You mentioned, Andreas, the one based on friendship. Is there also another example that you've seen of a lasting long-term collaboration? And how did it come to be?
Maybe to react on that, I think that was a very conscious decision also from our university to say, okay, let's try at least one long-term relationship with KNUST in Ghana and see if that can last over a longer period of time.
And what was long-term?
Actually, there is no end point, so in that, but at least see if it can scale up over time, and we gradually see that happening, and also some practicalities then also get into place. Let me name one practicality, that is the obtaining your visa. For example, before it was very complex to get a visa for Ghana. Took a long time, and actually once you wanted to travel you wouldn't get it, so then you couldn't travel. Now KNUST has a direct relation with the immigration office. They say if somebody from TUM comes to KNUST, we'll assure that you get a visa. And they expect us to do the same. Now, we have not done that yet, so still very complex from TUM to influence the immigration officers in Germany. But I guess these sort of practicalities are crucial, I think, for these long-term collaborations. So I think that's an important point.
Yeah. Thanks.
We are doing the same thing for the people coming from sub-Saharan African countries. So we are dealing directly with the consulate Moroccan consulate and the embassies there. And it's now it's easier and easier. But for Europe, it's another topic. To answer your question, the partnership we have with EPFL is up to 14 years. So this is a long term. So we have a visibility. So it's very solid as a partnership. Try and learn. We first cohort, now the second cohort. It's better than the first one. I think the third will be even better. But the idea here is we know that it is for the long term, perhaps more than 14 years, 20, 30, because we are sharing exactly the same philosophy, and this is the very important thing.
Yeah, so it's you work from the same basis, and then you work for a longer period of time.
Because the idea discussion was 4 years ago, I think 4 or 5 years ago. It was, what should we do for the development of Africa? We had to answer this question, and the answer was, we have to build the capabilities in terms of research. This is what we are aiming at. EPFL are good in research. UM6P is willing to do that. So we have just focus on that.
Big aim, long term.
This is it.
Claire?
Yes, I'm not sure everybody sees the exchanges. I just want to say that our colleague Ahmed Malel, who is who is in charge of EuroAccess for Africa, he mentioned that they organize regularly practical workshops for Horizon Europe projects in proposal writing, for example. By the way, they don't do these workshops only in English. I think they do it in French as well and in Portuguese as well, because I've attended some of them. So, and he's giving his contact details as well. And so EuroAccess is really the place where lots of things are happening.
Yeah, and supported also.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there are information days explaining the different actions on the Horizon Europe, but they are also organizing practical training on how to write good application. The problem that African, by the way, organizations have, it's exactly the same in many European countries, because we have this super organization that have lots of, they are like enterprises in producing applications, and there are smaller ones, or in some of the countries that do not have this expertise. So I think within Europe as well, we're facing a big divide.
Yeah. There's a question from the audience. I will be with you.
You're promoting the exchange as an opportunity to build partnerships, and I can see the point of the creation of ideas for future projects and so on. But are these exchanges depending on an existing research and innovation project, or could these exchanges be applied from an African country without an existing project?
No, it can be a completely new idea. So it doesn't need to be, it can be based on a prior collaboration on a project that you want to expand, but it can also be something completely new. And really, I think it's the easiest and the most flexible action that we have under MSCA. And once you have experienced this, then you can also apply for other types of actions, yes.
And the most important thing could be driven by the African partner, could be their initiative, or has the European partner the one who needs to apply?
Okay. It depends. We have different rules according to different actions, and we need in the future to streamline this. So, for example, for the doctoral networks, the African partners, they can be both beneficiaries, it means receiving funding, or they can decide, because some say it means too complicated and it involves a lot of administration, so we can be associated partners for the doctoral networks. For the staff exchanges, they can only be associated partners. It means it's the European partner who applies on behalf of the consortium, but then they receive the funding within, it's a decision of the consortium. And there can be, large networks of different European countries, different European, African countries. We know it's an issue, the fact that under staff exchanges, African countries cannot be beneficiaries, but this is something we are thinking of changing and adapting in the next generation of program that we are reflecting on the next, RNI, European RNI framework program.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the question. I was wondering if the questions from online can also be displayed behind the speakers, because one of the things that's there is what you just mentioned is the contact details for Euraccess. So these are also visible for all people in the room. And as a wrap-up of this first panel discussion, I would like to ask you, one by one, to briefly mention what for you is the main thing that we should really take away from this panel discussion, that we should remember for building capacities of science between Europe and Africa. Walter Timo, can I start with you?
Yeah, that's a difficult one. It must be fun. And
it must
be
fun.
useful at the same time. I think that is... So don't be afraid to start something up. I think you never know if it will work, but very often it does.
Thank you, Andreas.
My word was fun, actually, also. So I'll say exciting. Exciting because the potential is huge.
Yeah, Hisham.
Yeah, believe in Africa as a huge land of research opportunities. This is number one. Number two, do like Erasmus. Please have people all over the world just to share with us. We learned a lot this morning. I think it's worth sharing with all the universities all around Africa.
Matteo?
I totally agree with the word opportunities. And I think we should build our strategy on 3 different pillars. Education, Erasmus Plus has been mentioned many times, very important. Applied research, we will see in the second panel projects related to, for example, green transition. And the Africa Initiative has been mentioned, the Global Gateway as well has been mentioned. They are all about applied research, very important if we want to answer current questions, super important. The missing pillar, I think, is basic research. We should promote more basic research activities at the European level that are targeted to Africa.
Yeah. And Claire?
Well, I mean, basic research is promoted under MSc because it's completely bottom-up.
I totally agree, but it's not targeted to Africa, specifically. That's the missing point. And I think that this is very important if we want also to have higher visibility. For example, RISE or the Africa Initiative are very much visible in Africa because they are targeted to Africa. We have a problem. I'm a fan of Marie Curie program because it's bottom-up, it's basic research, it's something that is also for network activities. I am a Marie Curie fellow, so I'm totally fan. The limitation I see is that it's not a program that is targeted specifically to Africa.
Yeah, it's broader.
Yeah.
And then
it's one of the components, but not the sole component.
Yeah. And to summarize, Claire, what would be your takeaway of this panel discussion?
My takeaway would be that there are lots of existing networks, lots of opportunities. Through Erasmus, Erasmus really has opened a land of opportunities. I think, I can't remember who was mentioning that there are students, that there are alumni who participated in Erasmus, who were professors as well, by the way, because it's not only for students, for professors. So I would really advise these professors, these students who have been to Europe, to the professors as well, and European students who have been in Africa, because it's both sides, mobility and exchanges, to be used as the basis for developing further cooperation in the framework of Horizon Europe and the framework of MSCA. And also, there will be webinars organized by our colleague Ahmed through Euraccess. So please, if you're interested, yes, follow them.
Yeah.
I think they might not only be, usually they're not only in English, by the way, they are organized in different languages as well.
I think people will be able to look that up. They can see the link here and they can see the link online. Thank you very much for this summary. Walter, Timo, Andreas, Hichem, Matteo, and Claire, let's give them one more round of applause. Thank you very much. So during this first bit of the morning, we've learned a lot about opportunities that you can apply for, grants you can apply for. You've heard a lot of examples of how people do collaborate already, and also the challenges that they run into, and hopefully you've heard some solutions that work for your situation. You can digest this a little bit over a short coffee break. We will have a 30-minute break until local time 11:30. So if you're anywhere else, then you know that in, honestly, 28 minutes, please be back online so we can continue with the program. Enjoy your coffee. Welcome back to the second part of the EU-Africa conference. For the afternoon, what we will focus on is the green transition. So the focus we've had so far was on capacity building, and I think a lot of the things that we've learned this morning will also transfer into the afternoon, but the focus of the afternoon is really the green transition. And to introduce us to the research topic and the possibilities on this topic in EU-Africa collaborations, I would like to invite our first speaker, and I'm going to invite her onto our online stage again. Her name is Maram Ali Ahmed, and she's a postdoctoral researcher at the Institut Polytechnique de Paris, National Rabat University, and Al Naylan University. And I would like you to give her a big round of applause. The online stage is yours, Maram.
Thank you for introducing me. I'm very honored that I have been chosen to present in this conference. I will now present my research journey from Africa to Europe. My name is Maram Ali Ahmed Moussa, and I'm a postdoctoral researcher at Institut Polytechnique de Paris. Next slide, please. My journey started when I have, at the moment, I have a teaching position at National Rabat University in Khartoum, Sudan. I started my journey by the bachelor degrees and master degrees at Khartoum University, Sudan. Both were self-funded. Then I started my PhD at Al Naylan University, where I faced problems of lack of materials and testing equipments, where I had to buy my materials by myself, and I didn't find the testing material equipments to test my materials, which make me move to University Putra, Malaysia. Thanks for the OWSD for funding for the sandwich program there. Due to the troubles that I faced in the PhD, I decided to shift my research work to theoretical research, where I'm doing my postdoc the period here. Thanks for the LSE lab at École Polytechnique for the hosting, and thanks for Schlumberger for the funding. Next slide, please. My research focused on green energy. In the experimental part of my PhD, I studied the photocatalytic nanomaterials for the water treatment applications. I tried to shift the activity of the materials toward solar energy, where now in the theoretical part of my postdocs, I'm investigating the materials for photovoltaics applications. Next slide, please. Africa is full of opportunities. It is full of brilliant and motivated young researchers. There are lots of open questions need to be investigated, and it is there is biodiversity in materials and in ecosystem, and also there are more. But fortunately, there are lots of challenges that Africa faced. There is the lack of local funding research, and there are lack of facilities like access to journal, access to experimental equipments, access also to computational facilities. Researchers work in isolation. Most of them are seeking higher salaries because of the low salary rate for the researchers, and also they are there are lack of qualified advisors. Most of them are migrating for countries that give better opportunities. The rest that are in Africa, they are consuming more time in teaching versus doing research, and of course there are lots of political conflicts. Next slide, please. Research. I will focus on the research isolation. Mostly in my region, there are rarely to find departmental scientific groups and common research work in the same institute. Most of the scholars select their topic that they are going to work on it independently, and they are working in it with their supervisors, and they are both alone. And there are I won't say no connection, but minimum connection with local or regional or international groups. I have a long-term goal to promote the opportunities to collaborate with European institutes and African to facilitate the scientific knowledge. Next slide, please. This creates a research gap. Of course, working in isolation and scientific groups that work in isolation, it creates a scientific gap. Next slide, please. As I saw from I followed the morning session, there are lots of opportunities for researchers, and in Europe on European initiatives that support the needs of the African needs. But I think our responsibility as African researchers in Europe to share the opportunities and also to support the building of these collaborations. But of course, we are in need of the fund of mobility for researchers to Africa and from Africa. We are in need of and access to facilities, experimental, journal, and computational facilities to enhance the research in Africa. We need funds for local research, because we need African researchers to develop Africa and to work towards the African needs and African problems. We need also the long-term collaborative projects that between African and European or global scientific groups. And we also, of course, we need the capacity building, training, and courses. Thanks for your interest and for your attention, and see you.
Thank you very much, Maram, for this introduction into the green transition. A first question I have for you is, if you were to define the green transition, what would it be to you? What's the green transition to you?
This question is for me.
Yes.
The green transition for me refers to the shift towards sustainable practice and through the green innovation, like work in green energy, work in the materials that support the work without consuming what do you call it? I think shifting to the green resources and consuming the more environmental resources that we have is more, I think, defining the green energy or the green transition.
Yeah, so really shift to sustainability. And in the examples, I hear you say different areas of expertise. So it's energy, but I think it's also broader than that, right?
Yeah, it's broader than that, but that was my research focus.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
For the room or for the people online, do you have any other questions for Maram? What would you like to know from her PhD, her postdoc, the way of collaborating? And I'll check if there's a question from online. No question online. There's a question in the room. Can someone bring a mic? Yeah, right behind you, Maria.
So, hello, Maram. So for me, the opportunity you're in here, and you are in France, in Paris, and you are coming from African universities, so how do you think we can push this collaboration towards the African university and here? What we can do to foster it from here?
I think we had to build the collaboration through the conferences. We are the African that attend the conferences. We can build, see the common work and work on it, and exchange the researchers between Africa and Europe, and also the capacity building of doing the research, the courses and the training programs, and also give the access to facilities in Europe to promote the research work that are focused on the African problems.
Thank you very much. I think that answers the question. No questions online? No. Then thank you very much, Maram. Let's give her one more round of applause. Thank you for joining us online and kickstarting our topic on the green transition. And this is the topic that we will be working with for the rest of the morning until 1 when we have lunch. And for that, we also have panelists in the room who work with the green transition, who know a lot about the green transition. So let's bring them forward. And we have 5 of them, but there are 6 of them. So we're going to find out how this is going to work. There will most probably be a slight change in one of the panelists, or one of the panelists will swap places with a colleague in the meantime. We'll make it work. We'll be here together and we'll see how it goes. So let's bring them forward. Jaap Boom, Kirsten Thompson, Maria Rufino, Vanessa Miani, and Helene Charton. Please come forward. As you've seen in the previous panel, we have 3 microphones and 5 people in the panel, so please make sure that you exchange the microphones with your neighbor. It's usually easiest when you hold on to them, so you can easily pass them on, give them to your neighbor, put them back and forth. I asked Maram what the definition for her for the green transition was. For her, it was mainly moving towards sustainability. Let's start with a quick check first. Is that also the case for you, or do you have a different definition? First question, is it the same definition? Who has a different one?
I think for developed countries that depend on fossil fuels, it's clear that we have to stop using them. For Africa, I have a different view. They use a lot less fossil fuels. So my hope for a green transition in Africa is that they will develop without creating the dependency on fossil fuels.
Yeah. So it's not the shift from fossil fuels to more sustainable energy resources, but skipping that.
Skipping the steps that we took in the high-income countries.
Yeah. Any other definitions? Moving towards sustainability. And that's the definition that we'll work with. And just as we... Yeah, one addition?
Maybe just to add, moving to a healthy planet. A healthy planet is one with less or without epidemics and outbreaks, but also without those uncivil unrest, which are a consequence of the global warming and not having the green transition.
Yeah, so it's broader. Yeah, thank you. Then just as we saw in the last panel, let's introduce our panelists and see what is their background, what are they here for, and ask a first question. And of course, the question again for you is to answer briefly to this first question so the audience gets to know you, and then we can kickstart the discussion. I will start with you, Jaap Boom II. You're the Executive Director of the Institut Pasteur Bangui in the Central African Republic. And the question for you is, can you tell in a few sentences from your African point of view, why is the African-European collaboration necessary specifically for the green transition?
Thank you very much. So I will first mention, as compared to the previous panel, that I've quite benefited from the EU Africa support. I was doing my PhD at Paris-Orsay and Polytechnique with Anoumili Kallio, and we were quite supported by the EU program. So why is it important for Africa? Because we contribute to less than 4% of the carbon dioxide, but we are quite impacted by not having the green transition. All the civil unrest that we see in the Sahel, most of them are caused by the lack of water. And the lack of water is due to the fact that in the northern country, because of the use of fuel, they create the CO2 and therefore impact the continent. Also, when we look at how the tendency in terms of disease, if I take a disease like Ebola or in DRC in West Africa, the number of outbreaks has increased, and the time between the outbreak also is reducing. So we are affected by those global warming, while we are not the most contributing factor. And for the end, we are interconnected. If I take the example of monkeypox, monkeypox have been present in CAR and also in DRC for many years. And then it moved to Europe a few years ago and created a pandemic. So if we are not taking care or investing actually on what is happening in Africa as a consequence of global warming, then it will come back. And when it comes, the way those viruses are impacting our population might be different. So that interconnection is critical because it's reminding all of us that we are really together, and therefore we need to invest together on fighting that, moving toward green transition.
Yeah, and collaborate in the green transition. Yes, thank you very much. Let's move to Kirsten. Kirsten Thompson, you're the head of the Research Secretariat at the National Institute of Aquatic Resources at the Technical University of Denmark. And you're based in Europe. And then from that perspective, why is for you collaboration necessary between Africa and Europe?
I think it has been very clearly put already in the first session that there is this there's so many opportunities, as also Maram said, lots of scientific questions. There's a lot of synergies that we have to exploit together. So there's simply so many opportunities that we have to work together.
Yeah, we can't let them be.
No.
Thank you very much. Let's move to Mariana. Mariana Rufino, you already have a mic. That's great. You're professor of livestock systems at the Technical University of Munich. And you've been working and living in Africa and also doing research out of Africa for quite a long period of time, mainly whilst being based in Kenya. And can you briefly say how living and conducting research in African countries has helped shape your vision on opportunities to support the green transition?
Thanks. I think living in Kenya and working in several African countries have given me the opportunity that you don't get when you're flying in and out of testing assumptions that we make when we conduct research. By living there, you take the time to understand the problems and maybe to explore different perspectives. Personally, I've been enriched by the experience of living and given that time to understand what the problems actually are. The more time we give to a problem and to listening, the different perspective and point of view that we can observe. And that is what I understood, that the green transition for Africa will look different to the green transition for our countries, for fossil fuel dependent countries.
And we will see and hear some examples of that, I assume. Yes. Let's move to Vanessa. You already have the mic. Vanessa Miani, you're Policy Officer for Cooperation with Africa on Research Innovations at the European Commission. And the question for you, can you state in a few sentences what the European Commission does to support EU-Africa collaboration necessary for this green transition?
Thank you very much, Jolene. So I will start by saying that our policy mainstay for cooperation with Africa is the EU Innovation Agenda, so the African Union, European Union Innovation Agenda, and which was jointly adopted by both the African Union and European Union last year, so in July 2023. And it was drafted through, I want to highlight that because it was drafted through a concerted Team Africa-Europe approach. So together working also by involving many stakeholders from the Africa and European innovation ecosystems. throughout a 6-month consultation. So the agenda, this joint agenda's mission is to promote and encourage a long-term, sustainable and operational research and innovation ecosystem model, an innovation model between the Africa and Europe, by translating, of course, research and innovation endeavors into tangible outputs, so concrete outputs such as businesses, jobs, opportunities, products and services. And it focuses on 4 priority areas, as were jointly also defined by the EU and the AU ministers, which are public health, green transition, of course, innovation and technology, and capacities for science. So in order to achieve this result, we had defined 4 a set, let's say, of short, medium, and long-term actions of course, for each priority area to guide this implementation. And for green transition, I will stop very briefly. We focus, for example, on a short run, on supporting the market uptake, and of course also by fostering innovative energy solutions.
Yeah.
I will stop here.
I think there are a lot of opportunities to dive into them a little later. Yes, thank you very much, Vanessa. And then last, Hélène Chorton, the Policy Officer for Higher Education at INPA at the European Commission. Hélène, what is the place of the green transition in the new EU external action strategies? And what was already discussed earlier this morning, one of them is the global gateway. Can you say a little bit more about this?
Yes, of course. So, green transition through the climate and energy pillar of the Global Gateway strategy is at the heart of this new external strategy. But it's we have some pillars focusing on certain areas, plus one other pillar, which is education and research, which is really there to support the others. So that's where it is important to bring together what we are doing, the investments, the infrastructure in those different sectors, plus the soft skills. And that's where what we are trying to do to support the green transition, really to build the capacity to support the green transition. And I'm working with the education units, and when talking about the green transition, it's also to try to bring a change in the mindsets. Green transition is affecting schooling. Of course, when you have floods, you have millions of kids who can't go to school. So this is also something that we need to build from a very long-term perspective, from early childhood to research. So that's also what we are trying to do in our unit.
Yeah, thank you very much. And you see these 5 people here on stage now. Yaboom, at one point, will most probably leave us and then will be replaced by a colleague, and we'll get there when we get there. First, as a question for you, we already heard a little bit about examples of collaboration, also changing perspectives when living in another country, and opportunities and also priorities that we see within the European Commission. We've discussed why it's necessary to build capacities for science and to collaborate. What can we add about why is it necessary to collaborate for the green transition specifically?
My experience working, I have worked in West, East, and Southern Africa, and what I have experienced in the last 20 years is that it is also on our self-interest to focus on Africa. Some of the speakers have mentioned this before, but the high frequency of exposure to climate extremes that the continent has observed in the last 200 years is something that could help us develop, prepare for what is coming for us. You probably heard in the news that the southern Germany is flooded at the moment, and we don't know how to deal with this extreme event. We are actually not prepared for it. So can we also learn from our African colleagues, from our African researchers, how they have faced in the past climate extreme, how they have adapted to it?
I will just add one example to add on what you've mentioned is mosquitoes and malaria. So we have more and more mosquito in Europe as compared to what we used to have before. And in Africa, we have a long experience on how we implement our vector control model, which can be learned in Europe and in countries that have not had that experience of dealing with those new mosquitoes. So I think there is definitely a way where we can have those exchange. And I was happy when you were mentioning that Africa has an opportunity to leapfrog, to do it in a different way. The access to technology can put us in a position where we can learn from what Europe has been doing so that we don't repeat the same mistake in one way or the other.
Yeah, and you take a step ahead. Yeah, yeah. Anything else that really marks why this collaboration is important for the green transition?
I can step in. Yes, so under the different programs, you have mentioned the EU Innovation Agenda, so which is joined with different DGs, RTD, and
can you keep your microphone a bit close?
Yeah, and also GRC. Here we are developing also some interesting programs which also try to tap in the resources that are existing in Africa. I'm thinking of the Green Center of Excellence, for instance, which are not something that we bring, but we build on what we identify first, what exists in certain areas, to develop the capacities and to support it through strong partnership between institutions and researchers from Europe and from Africa. For instance, for this year, one of them have been selected, one area have been selected already, oceans and biodiversity, forests and water, and we will develop others in the next years on energy, on agroforestry, etc. So this is a kind of example to see how we can also try to build on that, and there are many initiatives around this idea of a center of excellence, supported sometimes by the EU or by EU member states, which is an important thing. Another thing which we are really trying to develop is also to so I've listened carefully to our young colleague from her journey from Africa to Europe, and what is key also is to try to build and maintain the capacity within Africa. So we are working for a couple of years now on a program which is called the Intra-African Mobility Program, which is encouraging mobility within Africa and also building all the resources that we need in terms of quality insurance, of recognition of diplomas, so that the mobility could happen. And one new step is to also promote Africa as a destination of choice. We know that the flows are going outward to Europe, but how can we also bring researchers and young students to Africa to study specific issues that where the solutions are here? So that is really, I could develop later on the two things on which we are trying to work in a development perspective. For us, it's really to develop the capacity. That is what we are doing at INPA.
Yeah. So those are some examples of programs. Can you hand the mic to Vanessa? Because Vanessa, you mentioned it's one of the pillars in the CEO Africa report that you mentioned, with short-term and also long-term solutions or focus areas. Can you mention some of them or maybe link them to the programs that Helene mentioned?
Yes, no, indeed, thank you. And I wanted to add also that I want to put the focus actually on the co-creation side of the innovation agenda, because it's really important that every step we take, it's always a joint list, a joint step, so always together. And in this perspective, I would like to say that under Horizon Europe, this is like our most effective way to collaborate with our African colleagues, and to boost also this collaboration between Europe and Africa. But maybe we can delve into that a bit later about Horizon Europe, because I have a lot to say.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And can we have an example out of practice from Mariana or maybe from Kirsten? How have you experienced the collaboration with Europe, Africa, either being based in Africa or being based in Europe?
Maybe I can share an example of a successful model not effortless, but successful model of being present in a region and developing the partnership, developing in both ways. I'm talking about a small university in Western Kenya, and I was alerted by someone about the presence of this university, and it made sense for me to work there because I was interested in an ecosystem that has the largest forest of Kenya. And I've been working with this university for the last 10 years through different, and this is important maybe for the Commission to know, different sort of funding to fund different things. So funding that provided equipment, funding that provided mobility, funding that funded the research, or MSCs, or PhD, short courses, and so on. And by building this partnership, we have also benefited. I have brought many European students to work in this ecosystem, and it has been both ways. So don't underestimate the experience of the European student going and conducting research, are learning how to do things differently, using different mental models and testing their assumptions of how the world works. Right. So the presence in this ecosystem has enriched us both, but and I spoke about it with some people this morning already, what we need to do if they're going to be accessing these very complex funding schemes, we also need to build the capacity for the institutions to know how to play the game. Yeah.
So if I can add, based on the long experience that we have, because before working with Pasteur, I was working for Epicenter, which is the research arm of MSF in many African countries, including Uganda, Cameroon, and Niger. And we came out with what we call the Douala Equity Checklist. It's actually a checklist that we use. We publish it in PLOS Global Health so that you can have access. And it's actually around 20 to 30 questions that partners ask at different phase of the project. At the time of the design, the implementation, and also the dissemination. And the question is, how do you actually ensure that we are talking about the same thing, that if you have students from Africa coming to Europe, you also have students from Europe coming to Africa, because as she rightly mentioned, there is an important gain for both. So this checklist is available, and it has helping us to actually shape how we ensure that our project impact both, but also how the community is engaged.
And when using this checklist, do you remember a remarkable point where you thought, oh, this is where it's really valid to have the checklist?
Yes. So one of the first things is that we used to have most students coming from US or Europe coming to work in Uganda, for example. But in the grant, we never had funding for Africans to go to the US. And since we work on that, we actually advocate and lobby into the funders so that we can have the reciprocity. So some of my students will leave from Uganda, go in the US, and once they go there, they have access to lab, to different environment, and when they come back, they are different. The second thing is, how do we disseminate the result of our research? Most of the time, we'll publish them in good journal, but how many people, how many of politicians in our environment in Africa are actually reading those journals? Very few. So the impact of the project that we implement might not reach our target. So we decided that in the dissemination part, we need to ensure that, one, we publish in those scientific journals, but also we need to have our result in newspaper, local newspaper, so that at the end of the day, it must have the impact where we really want it to happen.
Yeah. And Kirsten, what is your experience? So we've heard from both sides that it's very valuable for students to see another perspective and to work in another context, that it changes them as humans, is what I've heard you say. What examples do you have of the collaboration?
We have not had that much student collaboration going to Africa. We would really like to have that. And I would like to return a bit to the collaboration in Horizons, a bit more broadly, because if you are a partner in an ordinary Horizon topic, and maybe we could think a bit broader and include case studies from Africa like we do today from the Arctic, from transatlantic, then you get a true research collaboration, which will also include students on both sides. It's been mentioned how difficult it can be to maybe access the Horizon, but I think there's a lot of potential there that we are not aware of, and it's really good that EuroAccess are doing courses here, but I think maybe also from EU side there could be some programs where you combine research topics with bringing in African partners. So, yeah.
Yes, maybe I'll take the hook here to explain a bit also from the policy side, our partnerships under the innovation agenda and of course under Horizon Europe too. So in the green transition sector, we have two main partnerships, let's say, since almost 10 years already. The first one is the EU RNI partnership on food, nutrition security and sustainable agriculture, shortly FNSSA, and the other one is the EU RNI partnership on climate change and sustainable energy, shortly also CCSE. And both of them, of course, are in line with our strategies, our main strategies, so the European Green Deal and the Farm to Fork strategy. Firstly, the FNSSA has channeled, just to give you some numbers, has channeled a joint investment of over 700 million euros and aims to boost, of course, the impact of EU joint research at local level also by addressing, for example, the food value chain, strengthening capacity building, as we were saying, and in order also to improve the access to sustainably produced nutritious and safe food at a local level. And of course, contributing also to the rural development. And as a part of the implementation, also linked to the dissemination part, we have rolled out a mapping exercise in 2022 of FNSSA projects. At that time, there were 200 more or less closed projects. And we did this with the aim of identifying most promising project by a business potential side. So to boost, of course, the ultimate aim was to boost further investment for their potential to be fully reaped. This exercise was very helpful because it helped to identify 14 out of more than 200 projects that, of course, require further investments. And currently, we are also rolling out other exercises of this kind for the other partnerships that we have on public health specifically and on the CCSE. So on the other hand, also some words on the CCSE partnership. The support, of course, renewable energy and support also research in innovative solutions on energy. And over 280 million has been deployed also for this partnership. And to support, of course, the climate mitigation and adaptation efforts in Africa also.
And Vanessa, we see one question online. If there's any research support for someone working in Africa that they can expect around green transition questions. I think you're going into this context. Is this question already answered?
Yes, I suppose. Yes, I wanted to finish just a bit the CCSE thing because we have, for example, a huge program, which is the long-term joint EU RNI partnership on renewable energy, shortly also LIPRI, that brings together, for example, 85 research partners with over 80 active projects at the moment, and focusing, of course, specifically on energy sector. So, for example, reinforcing the short grid, off-grid system, smart grid, and off-grid systems, the boosting also geothermal energy, thermal energy production, but also on the other side on access to energy and so on. Maybe some words also on Horizon Europe, because of course these partnerships are part also of the Horizon ecosystems, let's say, but of course under Horizon Europe and specifically for for cooperation, for international cooperation, we have a specific pillar, which is the pillar 2 on global challenges, and of course in which research also is supported by reinforcing technological and industrial capacity through thematic issues, and two clusters, so they are regrouped, and there are two clusters, so the cluster 5 on climate, energy and mobility, and the cluster 6 on food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture and environment, that are specifically targeted for green transition. Just as an example, but maybe we can deal into that further too, the African Initiative 2 under Horizon Europe regrouped in these clusters a total of 20 topics and around 260 million euros as a total budget. So just to say that the Africa Initiative to require specific participation of African entities. I will stop here.
Yes, I'm not quite sure what Stephen means, but maybe when asking for research support, one way is, of course, that you get into a collaboration. And we were talking about building up lasting research collaboration, having colleagues in science, and having a network. And that's what you use for joining in, for instance, maybe a Horizon project. And of course, as a partner, you will get research support through the coordinator of that project. So what I maybe are looking for are opportunities where scientists bottom up can can come with their own research questions and put into a program together, maybe a smaller consortium or maybe a larger consortium, because of course there are these flagship programs that you have, for instance at my institute. Well, it hasn't really fit any of our research topics. So we are sort of looking for opportunities, and we have partners we would like to collaborate with in for instance, Horizon projects. And we know they can join, but it's a bit tricky. We are looking into it. But something bottom-up opportunities would be nice.
Maybe I could flag one of a new pilot program that we have developed at INPA, which is, I think, addressing this challenge of when you're a smaller university or a small network of researchers, how do you manage to get this Horizon grant who are very competitive. So it is called the ARISE, so African Research Initiative for Excellent Science. And the idea, it was modeled after the ERC for African researchers. So we have now a first batch of 47 researchers in 38 countries, African countries. The grant is for 5 years, up to 500,000 euros, and half of them are on the green transition. And what is interesting is here we are providing the resources to build this network. So the principal researcher will build his network with master's students, with postdoc, with doctoral students, not only in his own country, but elsewhere on specific topics. And the idea behind that is really to also support this network, so at some point they could also join the competition, which is a bit tough for some regions. So that is something we are trying to address again from a development perspective.
Is this the bottom-up approach that you're looking for?
I think I'm more into the applied sciences, and also here to make a point, because in the previous session it was said that the success rate is very low, of course, if you're in excellent science. And there I think it's a good message to say that the success rate is much higher if you are in Horizon and if you are in a good consortium. So it's worthwhile doing the effort also. I think that's a good message.
Yeah, thanks.
But the button up, sorry, that was possibilities to do maybe more applied science, where you can actually maybe come with your own research topic within green transition or whatever.
Yeah, thanks. Let's see in the room if there are any questions or any remarks for the panelists that you would like to make. I see one over here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So I would like to make a comment. My name is Tom Batin. I'm a professor in environmental sciences at EPFL.
Tom, can you switch on your mic?
That's a very good idea, probably. But it is... No, it works.
Yeah.
No, it works. All right, so let's start again. I would like to make a comment. My name is Tom Batin. I'm a professor in environmental sciences at EPFL in Lausanne. So I appreciate this discussion a lot, which I think is quite interesting and necessary. Then comes my however. When it comes to the green transition in Africa, my comment is one on double standards, and it's one on fair sustainability. I have two examples for you, and I would really like to see, this tone being factored into this discussion a little bit. Number one, our green transition here in Europe, right, comes at the cost of detrimental consequences in Africa. I have seen cobalt mines, I have seen copper mines in Africa that I would never ever see again in my life, with impacts for environmental health and human health as I have never seen before. Number one. Number two, there's the so-called East African crude oil pipeline run by Total Energy, supposed to transport crude oil from Lake Albert in Uganda to the coast over something like 1,500 kilometers. The fun part of that is that the sulfur content of that oil is such that you would have to heat the pipeline up to 50 to 60 degrees C to be able to transport it, right? So before, we were discussing the fact that few people have electricity, and so here we produce electricity using solar panels, but however, right, to be able to transport oil that won't stay in Africa, that goes to Europe, Asia, and the US. So this is my comment, and talking about the green transition, I think we should really, really be aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
And we are the cause of that. Let's not forget that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and is there also a specific question you would like to address to the panel? Yeah, it's still on.
So no more electricity again. Okay. So my specific question could be, so how could we as leaders of the tech universities league in Europe and professors here, how could we kind of work with our students towards a more comprehensive understanding, a more encompassive understanding of what's going on in Africa, besides the so-called tech solution in the strict sense? Thank you very much.
As a professor of one of the technical universities, we have a huge role to play, and this is something that can be achieved when we have this mutual learning partnership. I take my European students to Africa to learn, to see what is going on, to understand what happens with the consequences of their habits, consumption habits, and how that impacts other people. And this is something that could be promoted, that there is this mutual learning, not the African student coming to do the PhD in Europe only, but all our European students who lead comfortable lives to come and understand how resources are used in different parts of the world.
And is this, yep?
Yes, I will congratulate, I think it's TUM University for the Africa certification program. because I believe that what Tim is mentioning, how are we confident that our students in Europe are prepared, are aware of what is happening in the continent where they are going to interact? So by ensuring that those kind of very hot debate are part of those certificates, that will ensure that before you engage yourself into a collaboration in the continent, you have, let's say, a good understanding of the culture, of the environment, and also by having those exchanges, it also has an impact here, but also in the other side.
Yeah. And if you have this awareness, then how should you act?
Then once you have the awareness, the way you will design the project will be different. I think someone was talking about co-creation. By having the awareness, we will ensure that you will first treat the people around the table at the same level. So the ideas, as mentioned this morning, if you have two different ideas, that you have that diversity. So the outcome, the dissemination of all the project will be intentional of ensuring that where we implement the project, whether it's green transition or something else, that the beneficiary are actually the good one. And maybe last, in one of the first comment, it was that principle of polluant buyers, pollueur payeur, if you say it better in French. Those who pollute more are the ones supposed to contribute more so that they can support those who are the most affected, which is mainly Africa. So if we talk about relying on renewable energy. If you see the cars, so we are moving toward electric cars so that we can reduce on the CO2. But where will go the old cars? They will go in Africa. So when they will go there, how are we going to manage them? We need to think about it in those projects. How are we going to build capacity in Africa to absorb all those cars that are coming? I'm talking about cars, but there are many other things that we will receive as a consequence of the green transition in the Occident.
Yeah. Was your question or your remark included? Thank you. We have one more question in the audience.
Thank you. Yes, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Tom, for this question, actually. And I think that, we are aware of most of these issues, and many colleagues trying to solve them also through European projects, for example. And as Matteo said today, that if you come with one idea and the other person comes with another idea, then if you share them, you both have two ideas. So my question is mainly for the EU Commission colleagues. You have a lot of projects in different schemes, right? So Marie Curie, Erasmus, you mentioned amazing also programs and partnerships. Do you have mechanisms, or do you think about mechanisms somehow to bring these projects maybe together and encourage that knowledge exchange between them so they could share the obstacles, but also, to lobby together to our politicians, because very often these problems don't sit within the universities. These problems sit with the governments, right? So how can we have knowledge exchange between the projects in different parts of the programs, but also then maybe collectively how we can channel it further, right? So, thank you.
Helene?
So yeah, there are two levels in your question. So I will start with the easiest one, the easiest part. So right now, there is the first meeting of the steering committee of a new program, which is not a new program, but it's exactly the idea is to bring together existing program. It is called the Youth Mobility for Africa Flagship. So what it is exactly that. We bring together what we are doing in terms of capacity building. It's more research, more higher education oriented, but still there are some research components. So it includes Erasmus+. You have talked about this morning. I think this intra-African mobility program I have mentioned, but other tools like HAQUA, SAQF, which are also, and this new Study in Africa program, another program on youth, because of course when we are talking about youth in Africa, it's only 10% who reach the end of secondary education. So what do we do with the other 90%? So it's also to provide some other type of opportunities which are not necessarily degrees. And here, why we are working on this flagship is to bring in the same room within this steering committee. So now in Gaborone, in Botswana, it's the first one, all the stakeholders. So these are, of course, EU member states, African universities, associations, students associations, but also private sector, because they play an important role also specifically in this question that we are addressing today, and trying also to bring this into the political dialogue. As my colleague has said, all the actions that we are doing are within this EU-Africa partnership. It's a political framework of dialogue. So we are having this dialogue with the African ministries, with the AUC, and it's challenging to bring this uptake, but all these programs are designed and are monitored closely for that. So that is the answers we are trying to provide. And of course, the idea is to bring more synergies. We see many initiatives all over the place on many things, but how can we bring this together and still streamline a bit more in some priorities? So that is what we are trying to do. Hopefully it will land somewhere at some point, but that is the idea, yes.
Did it answer both of your questions? Thank you very much.
So I think that it is great. There are lots of opportunities, and I was just wondering how you are planning to ensure that you have a massive communication, in the sense that there are lots of opportunities. Today I was learning that Erasmus can also be applied for scientists, for professors, for research, and so on. While I'm working quite a lot with some European institutions, I didn't know. So how can you... I'm sorry, I'm in the panel, but I'm asking a question. How can we ensure that the message reach the large majority of people who are in need, and how can they be supported and be in the position to apply to those very fantastic projects?
So again, that's part of the program that we are designing. So maybe I don't know if you have heard this morning of these new Erasmus Plus focal points in Africa. So technically, they are based in the ministries of higher education and research, and they are here to promote these programs, and not only with the usual suspects. The universities always apply and sometimes win the programs, but the second one, the small one in the regions. So that's the first step. And what we are trying to do is even to go a bit further by providing some support to for the analysis. For instance, we are working on green transition. What are the opportunities to be what are the programs which are existing in some countries or regions on that, at which level, who is funding them? So that is really the idea behind this study in Africa, to ensure the communication, because we see that it's something which is not there. The model is, again, what we have in Europe, study in Europe, which help a lot Erasmus to develop. Otherwise, with no communication, you don't have mobility. It's really key. So that's something that we are trying, again, to develop. We are not there yet.
Thanks. My question to you was, do you have any experience with this, with making it broader? Was that what you wanted to react on?
No, I wanted to ask...
Then I'll first go to a question over there. There is a mic.
Yeah, it works. Two comments about how useful this green transition could be in developing the EU-Africa partnership. The first one is about what Africa is dealing with, like the drought. A few weeks ago, there was like a forum in agriculture in Morocco, and there are some farmers from the south of France now experiencing the drought, and they were asking the Moroccan farmers how to deal with the drip irrigation, because they had no clue about what is the drip irrigation. So number one, so there are a lot, and it was said, in Africa we had to manage this, and this is another way, south-north and north-north-south. The second thing is about the use of technologies to tackle the green transition challenges. For instance, working on the solar panels. There is no dust in Europe, but the impact of the dust in Africa is up to 30-40% in terms of efficiency. So this is an opportunity for innovation. But if we cannot go there we cannot see this as opportunity. So you have to keep that in mind, that there are some topics that could be seen once we're on the field.
Yeah, and would there be anything you would need for this to be more visible or more known?
Yeah, so it's at the end of the day, it's a matter of communication. So you talk a lot about Erasmus, and Erasmus in Europe, it was l'auberge espagnole. So thanks to the movie in France, the number of it's just a movie. It was a wonderful movie at the time. It was 20 years ago, and everyone applied for Erasmus. So we have to imagine a movie in Africa, between Africa and Europe. I don't know. We have to find the title, and it could work
For creative outreach.
Exactly.
Yeah. We have a question here.
Yes, I had a question actually for the funders and the decision makers on EU funding projects. It's on the one hand very nice if there's lots of projects for and with African partners, but who actually decides on the funds? To which extent are the Africans also in the decision fora on those projects? So the millions that go into, usually they are decided still by the European agencies or even by the national agencies. If I apply for a German funding, it's the Germans that decide, even though it may be for and with Africa. To which extent are African people and universities also on those panels?
So here we said you have two types of programs. So the big one, the one which originate from some EU, from a EU 27 perspective, the European higher education or research space. So that's Horizon, that's Erasmus. It's true that they are not that much leverage from the African counterpart, but we are trying to balance this with this through this type of flagship. But for the other programs I have mentioned, like the Intra-African Mobility Program, we have some colleagues from university associations, Vice Chancellor of the University of Namibia, for instance, and the President of the African University Association, who are part of the steering committee and are taking part of the evaluation of the. So voilà. But this is in-house programs, so we have so much space maybe to develop that again at Impact.
Is it also something that we see expanding in the future? Do you know, Vanessa? Is it that the decisions are also made at other tables? Is that something that we foresee?
Yeah, I can specifically talk about Horizon Europe, that is actually a fixed budget, so for the whole program. And yes, it is divided. It's very complex, as you may know, Horizon Europe functioning, but every topic actually has a specific budget, and this is decided also on the priorities. So for Africa, we will put the, let's say, the highlight, the focus on the joint priorities areas that have been decided jointly by the AU and the EU, for instance.
And those decisions are
ongoing.
Yeah.
We are currently preparing the Africa Initiative 3, so which will be a bit different from the other two initiatives that cover the 2 years of the work program. So the first one, 2021, 2022, and the second one, 2023, 2024. But this third one will cover only 1 year because the work program will be only for 2025. And we are in preparation. So, of course, the number of topics will be a bit lower than the other initiatives, but still we want to keep the momentum on it, so to foster the African participation.
Yes, so I fully agree with the comment and the question, and I will end there before leaving. Is there is a say that whatever you do for me, without me, is against me. So whenever we are thinking project about Africa, it's critical to have African in the room. If not, there will be challenge of ownership of the project, of involvement, and many other challenges. There have been quite a lot of money that have been spent in projects in Africa, but when they look at the outcome at the end of the project, for some of them is zero, simply because there have not been enough African in the room in the time of decision making. So I think as a way of improving as I live, it's something that we should really consider. And there is a EDCTP that was presented this morning, was supporting research and project in public health, where you will see in the board a good diversities. And even when you see some of the projects that are being out, there is one currently on Mpox because of the outbreak in DRC, you could see that the intention of having African as part of the decision-making process, and therefore ensuring that the money that is invested actually reach the target.
Yeah.
And I will
Can I ask you one
Yes.
last question?
Yes.
So we've discussed a lot of things, but one of the things I've heard before from you is that one of the big burdens is not per se the science, but it's the administrative side of applying for those funds. Do you have one example where you've overcome this burden, and how did you do it?
Yes, when we were working in Uganda at Mbarara University, with some colleagues from Harvard University and so on, we support them in building the grant office. And the grant office, we took some of those scientists and non-scientists. They get trained in US, in Europe, so that they can learn how to actually respond to those grants. As Professor Isham was mentioning, it's a skill. If you don't have it, it doesn't mean that you're a bad scientist. It's simply that you don't know how to speak the good language. Yeah. So this is one way, and I believe that the focal country person for Erasmus can also be some of those people who can help countries, university, academics. Some of them can have an office in some country or at least regional, where they can bring some scientists to get trained on how to not only respond, but also how do you manage. The managed fund from EU, it's not that simple. So at the end of the day, if you don't manage it also accordingly, you might have to send back some money. So it's important to have all the process from how you apply and how you actually manage the project, so that at the end of the day, we are all happy about the project and the funding.
Thanks. Your main takeaway for the green transition and then the EU-Africa collaboration, what is it that you would like to...
The main thing is that we are all interconnected and interdependent. Yeah. So whatever is happening in Africa, it at some point come to Europe or elsewhere. So it's not a charity, as someone was mentioning today. It's a must. Yeah. We must invest on what is happening in Africa, because that's how we ensure that we have a healthy planet. Yeah. And don't forget French-speaking countries.
Merci beaucoup. Yes, sorry, thank you very much. I think I see your colleague run in, so we will probably have someone else on stage soon. But looking at the collaboration, that is a necessity. What good examples do you have of hurdles you've overcome, Kirsten or Mariana?
Well, I have a little success story with the small university I work with in Kenya. It was one of the Grand Challenges programs from the UK. I moved recently from the UK to Germany. And they were large programs from the UK government. And I wanted to include this small university. And there was a lot of due diligence to do to comply with UK standards. And I persuaded my university to help the research office to build the capacities to manage a large program. And it was slow but positive work. They learned how to comply with the legal, administrative, financial requirements. And to my pleasure, after completing this program with me, they got on their own. They became partners of a Horizon program. So the skills we build benefit them. I am not part of that Horizon program, but I was so pleased to see that they could use the skills of navigating the UK system to also navigate a Horizon program.
Yeah, thank you very much. You've seen a new person joining us on stage. Emmanuel, welcome. It's a pleasure to have you here. Emmanuel, you're the scientific director of the Institut Pasteur de Bangui, just as the same institute as we just had Jaap from. You just missed each other, so thank you very much for joining the panel and welcome. Thank you for the example, Mariana. Kirsten, do you have an example? No contribution, no addition. We were in the midst of looking at what is necessary for the EU-Africa collaboration to make the green transition, and also to see what kind of hurdles are there that we've overcome to make this collaboration possible. Do you maybe have an example? I will give you a mic.
I give my speech to Jaap.
To Jaap.
He already delivered.
Yeah, you gave examples, yes. If you have an example of your own, then you can add.
Yeah. The example I can share is the case of the monkeypox.
Yeah.
Monkeypox, many years ago, is a concern in Africa. But in view of European Union, as the disease didn't arrive in Europe, it was considered as neglected disease. Mm-hmm. And we see in 2022 that it became a big threat for the globe. That tells us that we are in the same area.
Yeah.
We are interconnected. So it's very important to set up a new strategy to see how we can develop together. We can have support from Europe, and we can also have support from Africa. Because without nothing, we have a lot of expertise on zoonosis disease. So sharing the experience between Europe and Africa will help to be good prepared, because more than more, due to the climate change, we will face an emerging disease. And if we continue to work alone, we did not learn experience from monkeypox, from COVID, and so on. So I think the main message I intend to deliver is to see how we can work together, how we can set up clear communication, confidence, because if we don't have confidence, if we don't have comprehension between Europe and Africa, where many of emerging diseases come from there, we will in the future face a very big threat, and it will be late if we do nothing.
Yeah. And Kirsten, how did you build some of that confidence in your research projects?
The confidence,
the mutual
confidence. Yeah, I think, as it also been said before, the continuity, the long-term development of research partnerships is very important. It's not something you just do like that. So I think it's a question of actually having programs where you can collaborate for a longer time period.
Yeah. And how did you do that?
Well, we were part of a Danish program that was called Building Stronger Universities in Africa. And we were actually, because of COVID also, things protracted. So we had a 10 years long collaboration. And I would say that now that's finished, but we are looking for other opportunities, of course, to continue this collaboration, and being able to do it with EU funds would be really great. So that's what we are looking for now, because you have to establish these networks. And I was very sad to hear Maram say that she was researching in isolation. Yeah. And I think that's really the take-home message here. No scientist, wherever, should sit in isolation. So we have to build these networks. Yeah.
Was this a...
How do you build confidence in partnership? My experience from higher education is by training students, so they become your long-term partners and they increase the network. So it's a fantastic multiplying effect that we can achieve through higher education.
Yeah. We have heard a lot of examples on how we can collaborate also in the green transition. What is it that you would like to know from our researchers or the committee members for your own collaboration? There's a question over here.
Hello, good morning. My name is Enrique. I'm a junior policy officer at the Guild. My question is particularly for the Commission side. And it comes in the sequence after mentions of confidence and trust. In view of the Commission's and the EU in general approach on the economic security, and growing geopolitical tensions and the fact that we need technology to operate the green transition, do you see a risk? And if you see a risk, how do we minimize this risk in Africa-EU collaboration potential being short-lived because of fears of misuse of technology, misflows? Yeah, that's my question.
Vanessa, Helene?
Yes, maybe I will take this very shortly, actually. First of all, the Guild was a proud stakeholder in the dialogue process, so very happy to have you here. And I would say that indeed research security also is a very priority right now. In the last weeks, it has been also adopted, the recommendation by the Council, so it's very important. But maybe it will be, it is actually a very broad and specific question. So I will not really go deep into that.
Maybe ask more specifications in the break to elaborate a bit more on the yes, specific context.
Actually, of course, technology transfer, as you were saying, it is really an objective that because we identified it as a need in the African-European cooperation. So we are really working to that, and of course with in respect of all matters in this respect.
Thanks. We have room for one more question, either online, and I'm looking at online people, no question, and one more opportunity for the room. Yes, can we have a mic? Yeah, perfect.
Thank you. I would like to come to the question that I think you asked in the beginning, that what's the definition of the green transition? Because of my feeling was that it was not quite the same definition for all, and my impression was actually that all of the definitions are uniting here, that green transition, it's about global warming, green transition, antimicrobial resistance that's linked to the global warming, One Health issues that are mentioned, and this is of course point of view of the microbiology, so I would like to have your point of view as well. For example, are these topics treated at the level of Commission in transversally, or are all of these different topics within each separate directorate or whatever they are called?
Vanessa?
I am not sure I fully understood the question. Maybe it was if these topics are related.
If all the different topics, so the energies and the micro...
Commission in separate offices or directorates or whatever, or are they transversal interactions?
Yes, no, of course we interact also with INTPA very much a lot. I'm from Research and Innovation Directorate General, and for example with the LN unit and also sister unit we collaborate a lot, and also many INPA colleagues are also part of the working group of the innovation agenda.
And it's also something that's explicitly part of the EU-Africa agenda, right? Where there's...
Yes, of course. In the working group, we also have African partners, of course, from the African Union and from the African Union Development Agency.
Because the health one and the green transition you mentioned, you look at them as separate ones, but also in combination,
yes, there
right?
are also other working groups, but in ours we try to cover all of them, all of the priorities. So we have experts from public health, green transition, innovation, more technology oriented, and so on. We are a large working group.
European Commission is huge.
It's huge already, indeed.
Does it answer your question?
Yeah. Maybe to add on that, what we're also trying, of course, to work with the other DG Clim, DG Agri. I mean, because the Green Deal is really at the heart of this commission, and how it is from our side. It's really to see how we can bring also the European expertise in addressing this green transition, the Green Deal, in our international cooperation, in international action, and through our international tools, programs. But also within this political dialogue that we have. So it's not only our own self-interest, but balance with the interests of the regions with which we are working.
Yes, indeed. Just to add, everything is done under the aegis of the HLPD, so the high-level policy dialogue, in which also African and European member states representatives are part of.
As a wrap-up for this panel, I would like to ask you the question, what is your main point, what's for you most important to support the EU-Africa collaboration for the green transition? Vanessa, can I start with you?
Yes, so as I earlier mentioned, maybe I found the key word. It's the co-creation, so that enables to find also network opportunities. Also, we try also very hard to connect, for example, similar stakeholders in teams or in scope, like geographically. And I think this is really a key word.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank
Helene?
you. Yes, for me, it's really a collaboration and synergies. So with African partners, but also within the EU, like what we say now, Team Europe, which is just not a word. It's really important. Again, you can see sometimes you see the European Commission as a self-standing body with its own program, but we are building this with EU member states. And from a European Commission perspective, and I come from a French research body at the beginning of my career, I can see how all the member states are coming in separate pieces. So we have some CNRS, IRD, CIRA, just to talk about the French, and then several universities. All of them having some great programs. And how can we try to build and bring this together? So that's also a plea for you to also try to, we all have our own responsibility in that, and to try to bring this together closely, to work as Team Europe to be more efficient in this green transition.
Synergies. Yeah.
I would like to see more programs coming up funded by the European Commission, where there is no sectoralization. They are not focused on Africa. They are not focused on Europe. The topic is there, and there are case studies anywhere in Africa or Europe. I think that will allow the researchers to pursue own interests and mutual learning.
Yeah.
Yes, I would very much like to support that possibilities for doing some bottom-up projects on common themes with case studies that's relevant, and not so much focus on.
Also linking to the bottom-up approach that we've discussed before. Yes. Emmanuel, what's your main takeaway?
Firstly, I want to say that today the mind of African people is changing. In Africa, there is a big gap between English-speaking country and French-speaking country.
Yeah, you have mentioned that indeed, yes.
So the barrier of language is a big problem. to French-speaking English. So, in the mind, I work at the Institut Pasteur for more than 35 years now. I enter as student and I finish at Institut Pasteur. So, the global consideration is that Europeans come to pick knowledge and build nothing from French-speaking countries. Now things is changing more and more. For example, we have the EDCP project, who is an opportunity of African to develop research with support. More and more we see European coming and working in the field with African, and if you consider the valorization, the publication, more and more African can be the first or last authors.
Yeah.
So I think the most thing is the confidence.
Yeah. Thank you.
For me, the most thing is the confidence.
Thank you very much. Yes. We have confidence, synergy, collaboration, bottom up. This is what we took away as the panel. Let's give them one round of applause. Thank you very much. You can take a seat. I'll grab this. And I'm curious what your words are, because we've discussed capacity building, developing talent, and also the green transition. What is the most important thing that you take away from this morning? And I would like you to discuss in one word, okay, maybe three if you want to build a mini sentence. So think about this for a few seconds, and then I would like to hear some of your responses. What is the word that resonates with you when you think about this morning?
Knowledge exchange for me and avoiding hypocrisy.
Yeah, knowledge exchange, avoiding hypocrisy. What more? Just shout.
Francesca, I work for the Free University of Bolzano based in Brussels, not a researcher. We are very much focused on the European partnerships, and I think the case studies from all over the world is very important because now the partnership.
And what's your one word?
Sorry, one word. So case studies from all over the world.
Case studies from all over the world. Yeah, yeah, like we heard on the stage. Case studies from all over the world. What more?
Co-creation.
Co-creation. Empowerment.
Collaboration.
Collaboration. I'd like to hear two more. What summarizes our morning?
Shared responsibilities.
Shared responsibilities and?
Africa is the future.
Africa is the future. Online we had a few additions. Create close ties in equal terms, and sharing information is key. I think that's a brilliant bridge to what's about to come up, which is the lunch, where sharing information is key, next to making sure that you take very good care of yourself. And during this lunch, I would like to invite you to have a look at the poster exhibition that you can find in the hallway. You can find some posters of projects that you've already heard about, but there's also a lot of new things to discover, so please make sure that you spend some time there too. During the lunch, you will meet with the people from this EU-Africa event that have participated this morning, and you also have the chance to meet with the people who will be participating in the water resilience event for the afternoon. I heard a lot of you will stay. I'm really glad to hear that. But there will also be new people joining us, so feel free to already meet with them, mingle with them during the lunch. And if you want to stay for the afternoon, but you haven't signed up, but you feel so interested in water resilience that you've just decided to stay, then you can just stay, just keep your sticker on, and feel free to come back into the room for the afternoon. And of course, the topic of water is closely related to the EU-Africa cooperations, and also some of the water projects that will be discussed in the afternoon are taking place in Africa. So there's a very tight connection with the two. If you are joining us online and you would like to join us for the water event, please make sure to use the new link, the link for the water event and not the link for the EU-Africa event. So that's an invite for all people online to join us, but to make sure that they transfer into the other live stream for the afternoon. If you will stay, please hold on to your sticker, enjoy your lunch, meet some people, look at the posters. If you will go elsewhere, thank you very much for being here this morning, and enjoy your lunch together. Thank you.